Imagine a gorgeous angel offering you a total redo in a fantasy world. But wait, this whole epic intro is actually just a voice-only stream that's absolutely blowing up online. Seriously. After seeing this, you'll think twice before ever hitting that Go Live button for fun. Under the cover of night, a dark-haired guy rocking a red headband locks in behind his mic, pouring his heart out to an audience of thousands. But the moment the sun comes up, he's just your average teenager, completely zonked out in his bed. Our story kicks off at the elite Crystal Royal Academy, the most prestigious school in the Rogius Kingdom. Once classes wrap up, he brushes off a classmate's goodbye and retreats to the total silence of his dorm room. But the second that door clicks shut, his cool mask completely shatters, replaced by pure exhaustion as he gears up for another broadcast. He slides back into his persona effortlessly, leaning into the mic with a massive grin as he hypes up the chat and kicks off the show. He shifts gears into the advice segment, opening a letter from a B-rank adventurer named Akita, and his playful vibe vanishes as he locks in on the man's desperate situation. Akuta's reminiscing about the time a new recruit joined his squad, but since the kid only brought useless skills like support magic, scouting, and weapon repairs to the table, Akuta deemed him trash and kicked him to the curb, leaving the poor guy absolutely devastated. Once the story sinks in, the streamer's face twists into a chilling, arrogant smirk as he leans right into the mic to hit Akuta with one brutal question. "Are you actually stupid?" He immediately rips into how brain-dead this move was, explaining that scouting magic keeps them from getting ambushed while repair magic is a total game-changer that saves them a trip to the shop. As he's laying it all out, the chat goes absolutely nuclear, calling Akita a garbage-tier leader and putting his massive ego on blast. His voice hits a fever pitch as he finally drops the hammer. He screams that he couldn't care less about Akuta's fancy rank or reputation. He calls him out, shouting that his decision-making is straight-up trash. He grills Akuta, asking if he's really gonna wait until his entire squad is wiped out before he admits he messed up. If he can't step up and make the hard calls, then he needs to just quit on the spot. Akuta is left completely paralyzed, silenced by the absolute verbal beatdown. 10,000 viewers are absolutely losing their minds in the chat. They're eating up his savage honesty, praising him for finally keeping it real. The entire community is in total agreement, and one comment really sums it all up. Akita needs to drop to his knees and beg that support player to come back. Ditching the drama and moving on from his last piece of advice, he opens a new letter from a high society heir who reveals he's already been set up with a fiancée. The letter gets even more twisted, revealing the sender has already moved on to a transfer student and is ditching the streamer for her. It ends with a chilling, selfish demand for the streamer to literally die so they can marry the new girl, leaving Kanata absolutely sickened by what he's reading. His insane claim sends the entire world into a total frenzy, and back home, one family is screaming at the screen in disbelief, wondering if this guy even cares about his own flesh and blood. Even the king is absolutely fuming, sitting on his throne surrounded by guards as he roars that this is way too serious to just brush aside. Everyone is absolutely dragging this guy, and even a pack of demons jumps in to tell him to quit being so shallow and finally earn his fiancé's trust. Rebecca's face contorts with pure jealousy as she watches the stream, and while the chat mocks the guy, she's already imagining herself getting right in his face, screaming that she wants a girlfriend too and calling him a total dumbass, leaving poor Akuta sitting right next to her completely baffled. With the stream finally wrapped, Kanata kicks back with a massive sigh of relief, signing off with a quick "see you tomorrow" to his fans. Looking down at his gear, he wonders if this is how streamers felt back in his old world, and honestly, he's having the time of his life. Back at home, the mask finally drops, revealing our mystery streamer is actually Kanata, the school's newest transfer student. Back in class the next morning, the teacher drops some serious knowledge. Magic is all about the power of your mind, and he proves it by manifesting a sharp crystal shard right at his fingertips. While zoning out during a lecture, Canada looks around and realizes it's actually been a hot minute since he was first reincarnated into this crazy new world. He thought back to that absolute rush of adrenaline he felt when he first discovered magic was actually real. This new world felt like a total dream at first, but seeing every random guy on the street slinging spells really killed the hype. To him, magic isn't some legendary miracle anymore. It's just another boring Tuesday. After realizing just how broken his powers were, Kanata crushed the magic ranking exam to secure a legendary rank S, landing himself a spot at the elite Royal Academy, but his massive presence immediately put him on the radar of a flashy, blonde-haired hotshot who thought he was the strongest guy on the planet. But the spotlight turns sour fast as two students corner him with looks of pure disgust, one mocking his lack of a noble name while the other straight up tells the pleb to get lost. The cold, hard truth hit him almost instantly. These snobby nobles straight up despised commoners, and he realized that in their eyes, your rank is set in stone. No amount of grinding would ever make them see you as an equal. He decides to play it cool, flashing a saintly smile and telling those thugs that if they've got a problem, they should go cry to the teacher. A total power move that leaves the bullies absolutely fuming. The heavy tension finally snapped when Maria Adarashisu came sprinting onto the field, frantically apologizing for her late arrival. The blonde prince immediately started chewing her out, but Kanata shut him down, telling the royal brat that if he had time to talk trash, he had time to prove his skills. The prince's face twisted in pure rage as he glared back, absolutely fuming at the disrespect. Maria tunes out the drama and turns to the teacher, thanking him for being so incredibly kind. The instructor just brushes her apology aside, telling her it's all good and that nobody is actually mad at her. He hits the nail on the head, guessing she'd just been swamped with chores back at the house. The moment the teacher mentions Kanata's achievement, Prince's ego goes into overdrive. He flashes a cocky smirk, brushes back his hair, and struts right past a totally unfazed Kanata to steal the spotlight. He squared up at the targets, confirmed with the teacher that the safety seals were active, and decided to go absolutely nuclear. With a roar of fire, he unleashed a devastating explosion of magic that rocked the entire room. The prince absolutely nails the bullseye with a massive blast, and the teacher announces there's room for just one more person, calling Kanata up to the plate. As the prince and his goons watch with arrogant smirks, Kanata steps forward with his arms crossed, ready to show them what he's actually capable of. He lets loose, and a massive explosion completely vaporizes the target in an instant. The shockwave is so intense, it leaves everyone watching completely frozen. You can see the pure disbelief written all over their faces. Maria's jaw hits the floor as her eyes go wide with terror. Even Kanata looks stunned, muttering to himself that he might have gone a little too far. As the dust clears, the total carnage of his attack is finally revealed. The teacher, clutching the charred scraps of the target, beams at the class and hypes up that insane display of raw power. He tells everyone to head off for their solo drills, but the rest of the students just slump over, their motivation completely shattered. As Kanata casually strolls away, the prince just stands there seething, his face twisted in a mask of pure rage and disbelief that a lowly commoner could actually be this cracked. But before he can explode, Maria steps in and cuts him off. She demands to know exactly what the prince and his two lackeys are up to. Shaking with pure rage, one of them screams that Canada is obviously a dirty cheater. The second they point fingers, Maria's face turns to ice, and her lethal glare shuts those nobles up so fast they actually stumble back in shock. She slams her fist into a stone pillar with a deafening crack, turning the solid rock into absolute rubble. She screams at them to drop the ego, making it crystal clear that their fancy titles don't mean jack in this world. She explains that guys like him have a specific it factor, a raw drive that's the real reason they survived the exam. While Kanata's just chilling solo, a mysterious student starts closing in on him. Suddenly, an elf girl calls out to him, catching our boy totally off guard. She's gushing over his power, telling him his magic was absolutely mind-blowing. Kanata's so flustered he can barely squeeze out a shy thank you. But check this out. The prince and his whole squad are in the back bowing down, calling this girl, Your Highness. She flashes him a sweet smile and finally drops her name. She's Lady Maria, the youngest of the 3 royal princesses. She starts breaking down exactly why social status is such a powder keg. But Kanata is too busy drowning under everyone's judging glares, praying for this whole nightmare to end already. He tries to dismiss her, saying it's nothing, but she runs a few paces ahead and turns back to him. She insists that he should hear what a certain mister has to say about the matter, her expression becoming serious. She shoots Kanata a playful wink and points a finger right at him, dropping one last warning. Quit picking fights, even when you're absolutely fuming. She flashes a knowing smirk and asks if he's actually got it through his head. As night falls, the prince is leaning against a tree and absolutely seething in silence, while Kanata stares up at the stars, muttering to himself that the other guys were the ones who started this mess. His thoughts on the day's events lead him to his new project. Seated before multi-monitor setup, he begins his broadcast, greeting his viewers as streamer. He asks how their day at work or school was, remarking that his equipment reminds him of a work terminal he acquired after enrolling here. He breaks it down for the crowd, explaining how he spent hours modding that basic terminal until it finally evolved into a full-blown PC. This wasn't just some minor tweak. Kanata tapped into his god-tier power to build a full-blown streaming service, finally bringing entertainment to a world that had been left in the dark for ages. During his stream, he reflects on the awful events of the day, limiting that the arguments about status between nobles and commoners seemed to be a never-ending cycle. He notes that if anyone else were to attempt streaming, their magical power will be depleted in a matter of minutes. Out of nowhere, a flashy, high-tier message from Anonymous Princess lights up the feed, and the entire chat loses its mind because that unique color means a legendary superfan has just entered the building. This isn't just some random comment. It's a formal letter of gratitude packed with a donation, and as Kanata reads it in total confusion, an image of the human princess Maria Atarashisu suddenly flickers into view with her hands clasped in prayer. Following the message, a notification confirms the transfer of 10 gold coins, the sound of the currency clinking as it is deposited. Canada stands there absolutely floored by her kindness, but a massive grin soon breaks across his face as he cups his hands and bellows out his thanks to the mysterious princess. He stares at the coin, his brain short-circuiting as he realizes this donation is worth a massive 100,000 yen from his past life. Panicking, he blurs out a question to his benefactor, asking if they're raiding their parents' bank account, while the chat goes absolutely wild with speculation. He keeps the conversation rolling with the mysterious woman who's been backing him from the shadows. She goes for broke and offers herself up as his lover, but he hits her with a smooth, polite rejection. He reassures her that he's staying deep in the shadows and his secret identity is perfectly safe. The princess thanks him, holding on to the hope that they'll finally meet face-to-face one day. Back in her private chambers, Princess Maria is tossing and turning on her bed, her heart absolutely racing. She finally admits the truth to herself. There was no way she could have fought these feelings. She's fallen for him, and she's fallen hard. Every new side of him she discovers just makes her love him even more. She turns into a total tomato, clutching her chest as her heart absolutely races from the sheer intensity of it all. Letting out a frustrated sigh, she thrashes around her bed before lunging once more for the device that's her only link to him. Staring at the monitor, she can't help but realize just how bizarre this guy really is. He crashed into their lives like a comet out of nowhere, immediately putting everyone under his spell with that insane charisma. In her head, he's a total legend, a beacon of hope who's already pulled a mountain of people back from the brink with his wisdom and heart. She's obsessed with his laser-focused goals and the way he never backs down. But what really gets her is his sheer guts to stare down the entire world's hate without flinching. She presses the phone to her ear, shivering as his voice crawls directly into her mind, making her feel like he's branded every single inch of her soul. That deep connection is the final spark she needed to make up her mind. She realizes that just throwing money his way isn't going to be enough anymore. Now she's ready to go all in and dedicate her entire life to him. That devotion just hardened into one single, unstoppable goal. With hearts in her eyes and a look of pure bliss, she shouted her new reason for existing. She was going to live for him. And don't forget, this streamer was already a total superstar with a massive following in Adarashia. But she wasn't alone. And from here on out, People all over the land started popping up with those same terrifying vibes, completely consumed by that same insane fire. This spiraling obsession was turning into a total powder keg, and Princess Maria was right at the center of the blast. And she definitely wasn't the only one. You could see the pure madness in their eyes as they all locked onto the one person they lived for. But the man behind the madness, Kanata, he had absolutely no clue about the storm brewing right under his nose. But his ignorance was about to get shattered, because a massive disaster was brewing that would force him into a head-on collision with his fans, and they were already losing their minds waiting for the next stream. Canada is hiding his god-tier strength while secretly being the only streamer in the world. And even though his classmates treat him like absolute trash, he's too busy watching the gold coins stack up to care. Streaming has pulled in a crowd of total obsessives, but Yandere Princess takes the cake, claiming she's going to personally fund his entire life. Ditching the suffocating crowds, Canada takes a chill shortcut back from the academy. He's got his hands behind his head, totally unbothered, as he walks right up to a massive high-end estate. Flashback to the library. Rebecca's venting about how life's been a total disaster since that explosion magic incident, while the prince and his crony sneer nearby, dismissing her high grades as nothing but a lucky fluke for a commoner. Then, she remembers a total disaster that went down just the other day. The prince had Maria the elf girl backed into a corner, shouting at the top of his lungs about how he loved her with all his heart. Poor Kanata just wanted to go live and cheer himself up, but instead, he was stuck watching this absolute train wreck happen. He was convinced he'd never make it past, especially if this prince was the third princess's fiancé. But Maria actually shut him down, apologizing and revealing that her heart was already set on someone else. She made it crystal clear that this wasn't about fate. She was choosing her own love story, and she'd already found the one she wanted to give her heart to, while the tiny viewer bot gave her a silent thumbs up of approval. Completely shattered by the rejection, the prince bolted away in tears, howling for her to just be happy and forget all about him. Back in the present, Kanata leans against a wall with a heavy sigh, thinking about how lucky Maria's future partner is going to be. He can't help but admit she's exactly his type, a total elegant beauty. But little does he know, Maria is lurking right around the corner, catching every word and labeling him the absolute lowest of the low for eavesdropping. She suddenly steps out and catches him off guard, sending Canada into a defensive panic as he swears he's just heading home. But Maria shuts him down by revealing his shadow gave him away from the very start. She plays it off with a laugh, telling Kanata she was just messing with him, while a totally flustered Kanata stammers out a thank you and makes a run for it. As he departs, she pauses, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. The accent she'd just heard felt familiar, though she wonders if it was merely her imagination. Back in the privacy of her room, she's glued to her screen as Kanata suddenly pops off in full streamer mode, hyping up his audience with a massive greeting. Her eyes light up as she shouts his name, proving she's been counting down every single second for this broadcast to finally go live. Akeem signals a donation, and she is overcome with bliss, melting at the sound of his voice and declaring her love. A moment later, she snaps back to reality, surprised by the large sums of money being sent. She expresses concern for the other donors, suggesting they should prioritize themselves lest she feel guilty for the system she implements. Demeanor shifts to one of fierce determination. She declares that she is the one who provides for the streamer, and that she must now focus on the day's first letter. While live on stream, Kanata catches a deep question from a fan. Is peaceful coexistence with demons really so wrong if it stops all the suffering? He's totally stumped, admitting that even though everyone says demons are the enemy, he just can't wrap his head around why they have to fight. His words spark a flurry of reactions from his audience. Some accuse him of betraying humanity, while others note he has expressed similar sentiments before. The idea of good demons is raised, but it is clearly a taboo subject. While listening intently, Maria recalls that he had said something like this before, drawing a parallel between the prejudice against demons and the discrimination faced by slaves. A memory surfaces of townspeople discussing the supposed savageness of another group. The memory jolts her back to the present, inside her moving carriage. Her eyes widen in shock at something she sees outside. She urgently commands her attendant Seabass to stop at once, Searing out from the carriage, she is confronted by a horrific sight, a slave auction in progress. Caged individuals cry out in despair. One begs not to be looked at, while another, a young girl, pleads with a well-dressed lady, asking if she is her new master and promising to do anything to avoid being with her. She's rooted to the spot in pure shock, and Seabass delivers the cold truth. This is a real-life slave market. He figures she's only ever seen this in history books and tries to usher her away, but with a shaking voice, she demands to know how this nightmare isn't a thing of the past. In response to her desperate plea to do something, Seabass can only admit his own powerlessness. He explains that powerful nobles and ministers still partake in the trade behind closed doors, making any legal reform nearly impossible. As Maria clenches her fist in frustration, he adds that he has heard of someone who offers guidance to those who have lost their way. Expression hardens with resolve. She holds up her communication device, a familiar icon glowing on its screen, and realizes who Seabass must be referring to, the streamer. If she is truly serious about this, she concludes, then asking him for help might be her only option. The desperation of the enslaved is palpable. A man trapped in a cage wonders aloud if anyone can truly find a solution to their plight. With a firm click, Maria begins composing her message, her focus entirely on the task ahead. Meanwhile, Kanata is in the middle of a stream when a message catches his eye. It's from the nameless princess, and her request is staggering. She wants to abolish the slave market. He expresses his shock that slavery even exists in this country, a sentiment that earns him mockery from other viewers. The princess's message continues, declaring that robbing people of their right to live freely is the ultimate evil. His voice crackles through her device as he throws down the ultimate challenge. If she's really a princess, she should be the one rewriting the laws, even if he knows taking on those ancient traditions is going to be a total nightmare. His words hit her like a bolt of lightning, and with fire burning in her eyes, she declares she's heading straight to her father, the king. While Seabass stands there reeling in total shock, the streamer's voice chimes in with one last bit of encouragement. This one move could literally save thousands of lives and bring a ray of hope to everyone currently in chains. Now driven by a brand new sense of purpose, she barks an order at Seabass to get the carriage ready right this second. That one single choice lit the fuse for a full-blown revolution. Maria charged to the front lines, leading a massive movement that crushed slavery forever and locked down the laws so it could never return. Fast forward to a vision of the future. Maria stands blindfolded under the moonlight, swearing her eternal loyalty to the person who finally showed her the way. Therefore, she now stands at the academy, applying the same conviction to a new problem. She declares that discrimination is a threat to peace and proclaims her intent to act as a mediator between the commoners and the nobles. Suddenly, her phone pings, and she looks down to find the chat has devolved into a total dumpster fire of fans fighting over who gets to date the streamer, leaving her absolutely speechless at how pathetic this drama is compared to her massive goals. Her bewilderment quickly curdles into fury. She demands to know what the others are talking about, calling them trash. With manic intensity, she declares herself the most suitable person for the streamer, punctuating her claim with a flurry of donations. Declaration is met with a hesitant response from the streamer himself. He admits he's flattered by the sentiment, but clarifies that he dislikes people who quarrel in public for all to see, labeling such behavior as a nuisance. His words hit her harder than a physical punch to the gut. Tears start flooding her eyes as the crushing reality finally sinks in. If the streamer despises what she did, then in her mind, he must absolutely hate her guts too. She quickly recovers from her despair, her expression hardening with new resolve. She declares that she understands and will do her best, vowing to get along with the others for his sake. As she makes this promise, the streamer muses aloud that getting along with demons is also important, idly wondering what the Demon King is like. His casual remark sends a shockwave through his audience. The reaction is immediate and overwhelming. His viewers, a diverse crowd of faces filled with panic and anger, erupt in a unified plea, begging him not to speak of such a topic. He remains completely oblivious to the uproar he has caused, having touched upon a great taboo of this world. Leaning back in his chair, he simply wonders if he will ever see a world where humans and demons can live together in peace. Elsewhere, the prince watches the stream, a smirk on his face. He finds the streamer's audacity interesting and resolves to start thinking more progressively himself. A powerful, horned woman holds up a hand, dismissing a group of terrified adventurers cowering before her. She declares them boring and not worth the effort to kill, commanding them to return only when they have grown stronger. This confrontation took place sometime before Kanata's more controversial broadcasts. Venturer Akita, defeated on the ground, recognizes a swirling vortex of energy as a war portal. The horned woman taunts the humans, questioning if they could ever hope to fight against the power they would classify as SSS class. Aggression softens into contemplation as she clutches a pendant at her chest. She silently wonders why they must continue to fight for centuries on end, questioning if this is truly the right choice for her people. Any trace of doubt vanishes as she struts through the grand hall, leaving her demon underlings staring in total worship. One of them calls out to Lady Shrusa, gushing about how she's just as lethal and stunning as ever. She brushes it off and moves on, figuring there's no use overthinking things that have been set in stone forever. But then, one of her followers spots something weird left behind by those fleeing adventurers. Lying in the dirt is a small device with a cracked screen, and get this, it's broadcasting some random streamer's face. Lady Shrusa can't help but wonder who on earth this mysterious person is supposed to be. Later, a different subordinate, a bespectacled demoness named Kikiki, explains the device's function. She notes that while they don't have his signal in their current location, it is said to be popular to listen to him. Holding the device, Shrusa considers that it might be useful for gathering information. Having reached a decision, she turns to Kikiki in a small, floating familiar. She gives a direct order: go and make something that will allow them to receive this signal. Kikiki eagerly accepts the command. Sometime after, Shrusa sits intently before a newly constructed computer terminal. Kikiki and the familiar stand by, watching her anxiously as the subordinate asks for her assessment. She snaps to her feet, the screech of her chair scaring the life out of the nearby attendant, as Shrusa admits this is just a way to kill time while leaning in with total tunnel vision. On screen, the streamer casually asks his chat what they had for breakfast, mentioning his basic egg toast. And Shrusa, who's over here feasting on meat, is absolutely floored by how insanely boring this guy is. She slumped over her desk, a blush, a frustration on her face. She chided herself for even considering sending a message, convinced the streamer would never respond to someone like her. Despite her internal conflict, watching his broadcasts had become a comforting daily routine. She recalled her initial assessment of him as someone merely killing time, a perception that was rapidly changing. As she took a sip, her mind raced. Who the hell was this guy? She knew broadcasting your voice like that took an ungodly amount of magic, and that's when the terrifying truth finally clicked. This random human actually packed more raw mana than she did, and she's the freaking demon lord. This realization made his next words resonate with shocking force. The streamer questioned the very reason for the conflict between humans and demons, declaring that war was meaningless as it only served to increase the death count. The sentiment struck Shrusa so profoundly that her cups slipped from a grasp. Her attendant, noticing her stunned expression, quietly asked if she shared the streamer's opinion. He played it cool, saying it was just his take, but he dropped a bombshell. If the big bosses stopped the constant war, they could finally talk peace, and Shrusa was hanging on every single word. A faint, amused smile touched her lips as she covered her mouth, thinking him a fool. Yet in that moment, a profound shift occurred. From then on, Shrusa began to see him as a comrade. Her deep thoughts were then immediately derailed by a more pressing matter: what to have for dinner. Her newfound sense of kinship prompted her to action. She sent a massive donation, startling the streamer with its size. He expressed his gratitude but urged the anonymous supporter to prioritize their own well-being. Unseen, Shrusa simply resolved to become his personal wallet, reveled in her secret patronage, laughing with manic glee. Her delight was cut short. However, when a notification announced another large donation, this time from the nameless princess, Shroud's joy instantly curdled into fury. When a subordinate cautiously asked if something was wrong, she snapped back that there absolutely was. Her possessive fixation was beginning to mirror that of a certain other princess. Her anger was momentarily forgotten as the streamer mused aloud, wondering what the demon lord looked like, and asking his audience if they wanted to find out. He then seemed to pose a question directly to her. "You want to see me?" The directness of it caught Shroudza completely off guard, and she peeked out from behind a column, flustered. But she scrambled back to her terminal, typing a furious reply. On screen, Kanata noticed the new comment, reading her message which playfully accused him of mimicking the demon lord and eagerly accepted a meetup. Immediately after, another message popped up, noting that the streamer was interesting and that they, too, would try to think more positively. Her voice echoed from within her private chambers, calling for aid. She announced that she had an urgent matter to attend to and required immediate assistance. A matter, however, was a deeply personal obsession. While bathing, her thoughts were consumed by the streamer. She reflected on her status as the demon lord, a ruler of many, yet found herself completely fixated on this faceless child of humanity. Her desire was singular and absolute. She wanted it. She mused that if it were him, she would even be fine letting him rule over her body. As her fantasy deepened, her subordinate Kikiki entered, politely interrupting to state that it was time for a lady's departure. Kiki notices her lady looks a bit out of it and asks if she's feeling lightheaded, but the demon lord tries to play it off by complaining the water is way too hot, only for her subordinate to shut her down, pointing out the temperature is exactly the same as always. But her mind was still totally trapped in a spiral of obsession. She was absolutely desperate to meet this streamer, see his real face, and finally get her hands on him. Now, she was left plotting. What would it actually take to make that dream a reality? Her resolve turned to steel as she locked onto her target. He was hiding in the human world, and she was ready to gamble her entire life as a demon lord just to hunt him down, with her decision made. She took flight, a winged silhouette launching from the spires of her dark castle, questioning if you would in turn grant her everything she wished for. Forget a live stream. She kicked things off with a massive flex, appearing right in front of a trembling human king with a lethal smirk as she declared that the show was finally starting. Far away from all the demon king drama, Kanata finally starts to stir, stretching out for what he thinks is just another totally normal morning. His peaceful morning was ripped apart when Zeus came charging in, complaining about the chaos outside and screaming for everyone to check the news. Down in the heart of a packed castle town, the atmosphere is absolutely electric. Word of what happened is tearing through the crowds like a literal explosion. People are swarming the streets, white-knuckling newspapers that scream one word: ceasefire. It turns out the demons themselves just begged for a non-aggression pact. Everyone's losing their minds, immediately linking this miracle back to that insane broadcast. You've got folks wondering if even the demon lord was tuned in, shocked by the sheer power of this mysterious streamer. Now, whispers are flying that every nation on the map sees this guy as the ultimate VIP. The front page says it all. A massive shot of the human king himself, forced onto his knees. He completely folded under the pressure, proving just how much this one event changed the world forever. Far from the political upheaval he has caused, Kanata sits by a window, looking out with a placid expression, completely unaware that his fame and influence are skyrocketing. He idly wonders if there will be a festival. In these moments, it becomes clear that a single word from the streamer now has the power to change the world. Having finally completed his task, Kanata stretches, wiping sweat from his brow with a wrench still in hand. Announcing that he's starving, he decides to eat outside and promises to explain everything to his audience later. He steps out into a massive, bustling town square, where the roar of the crowd echoes off the old-school timber buildings. He's cruising through the bustling crowd, taking a massive bite of a delicious skewer and realizing that life outside isn't half bad. But his peace is instantly shattered when he gets splattered with sauce, sending him into a total rage at the person responsible. The commotion comes from a burly man with a shaved head aggressively confronting a woman in a hooded cloak. He yells at her to watch where she's going, pointing at the stain on his shirt and demanding she make it up to him. The woman apologizes meekly, but Canada, watching from a distance, recognizes the situation as a classic scam. He clocks just how pathetic these scammers are, and since there isn't a single soldier in sight, he sighs, wondering if the universe is just trying to force his hand. He considers that while dealing with such things as a pain, doing nothing would be worse. Steeling himself, he calls out to the thug, addressing him as old man. Kanata steps forward, calmly stating that the woman only bumped into him and questioning the man's extreme reaction. The thug turns his attention to Kanata, aggressively asking what he wants. With a confident smirk, Kanata cracks his knuckles and tells the man to let the woman go. In a flash, he seizes the thug's arm, effortlessly twisting it. The man cries out in shock, stunned that someone with such thin, stick-like arms could possess such power. Panicked, he quickly makes an excuse about being late for work and flees the scene. Once the guy bails, Kanata turns to the mysterious woman and grumbles that the scammer could have at least said sorry, but she just peers up from the shadows of her hood and asks what's eating him. She pulls back her hood to reveal a stunning face and those massive, glowing eyes, explaining that his voice just sounded super familiar. Kanata is totally caught off guard, wondering if she's actually one of his listeners, and for a split second, he's already dreaming up a romance with this total babe, before quickly shaking it off as a massive misunderstanding. She's totally flustered, stammering that she could have handled that creep herself, but she was honestly afraid of accidentally putting him in the hospital. Kanata just brushes it off and tells her to head home before things get even messier, assuring her that he's got everything under control. Deep down, he's vibing with the fact that he's the secretly OP type, leaving the poor girl completely confused about what's actually going on in his head. Taking his cue, she offers a formal bow of thanks to the mysterious stranger she doesn't even know. Kanata just waves it off, teasing that rescuing a total knockout like her was more than enough to brighten his day. She gets all flustered, insisting she's nothing special and that there are way more beautiful girls out there. Kanata just scratches his head, thinking that if she's considered average, then the beauty standards in this world are absolutely terrifying. Her eyes suddenly snap to his hand as she asks what happened, leaving Canada completely stunned that she's actually worried about him. He plays it off as a simple bruise from yesterday's cleaning, swearing it'll be gone by morning, though a quick flashback reveals he actually got taken out by a falling stack of books. She reaches out and brushes his cheek, telling him to stay safe, and admitting he's way nicer than any guy at her academy, leaving Kanata totally frozen in his tracks. He jumps back in a total panic, desperately asking if he just crossed a major line with her. She stays completely chill, though, giving him a pass and telling him not to sweat it. Then, he switches gears, asking if she's been looking down on him as some younger kid this whole time. She confesses she thought they were equals, revealing she's actually 17. She's just a bit of a shorty. Kanata is blown away to find out they're actually the same age and immediately starts tripping over himself to apologize. To prove she's definitely not a kid anymore, she puffs out her chest with total confidence. She tells him to relax, insisting she's handled this before and her body is more than grown up enough. Canada is left absolutely stunned, staring back at her with his jaw on the floor. She keeps that smug grin plastered on her face, bragging about how she's got everything under control, while Kanata just cringes and hides his face, wondering how one person can be this freaking weird. With that bizarre run-in finally over, they split up and vanish into the city streets. She waves a final goodbye, crossing her fingers that fate brings them back together soon. He just gives a casual wave back, warning her to keep her head on a swivel and stay sharp. As he heads off, he's still replaying the encounter, picturing the cross on her gear and wondering if she's his sister in training. But honestly, he decides it's not worth the headache. High up in a massive summit hall, a woman in a sister's habit confronts a mysterious hooded figure. She starts to offer a welcome, but her voice catches. The situation is way too intense for polite small talk. Just then, Maria Adarashisu makes her grand entrance, storming up the giant staircase. Standing toe-to-toe with Maria, the sister lets her worries fly, terrified that the saintess got caught in a dirty scam, and she's convinced this mess only happened because the world doesn't know Maria's true identity. But Maria just watches her, her face as cold and unreadable as stone. Her sister keeps spiraling, terrified that the kingdom's diplomacy will crumble without her. But Maria just turns her back and walks away, leaving her words hanging in the air. Stunned by how ice-cold she's acting, the sister calls out to the saintess, reminding her that she's supposed to be the absolute queen of mercy. Maria stops dead in her tracks, folding her hands together in a display of perfect, holy devotion. She immediately schools the sister on the core laws of their faith. "Every soul is equal," she declares. "So remember, we're here to despise the sin, not the sinner." Tucked away in her massive chamber, she's finally alone to process the absolute madness of the day. But even in all that mess, she can't stop thinking about that one kind gentleman who stood out from the crowd. That's when the realization hits. His voice sounded freakishly familiar, leaving her torn between what she heard and what she can actually believe. She snaps out of her thoughts and scans the area to make sure the coast is clear, her whole vibe shifting as she nervously whips out a small communicator that chirps to life. In a heartbeat, her cool facade completely shatters. She lunges out of her chair with a scream of pure bliss, sending furniture flying everywhere in her explosive hype. The streamer's voice is finally back, and we find out this perfect saintess is actually a hardcore fangirl whose obsession is bordering on total madness. Under the moonlit shadows of the church, the sister admires the saintess's legendary composure, totally clueless that inside, Maria is absolutely losing her mind over a streamer's angelic voice. This is her secret daily ritual. Every single day, she purifies her body, making sure she's ready to surrender everything to him the second he calls. While the world sees her as the queen of composure, in private, she's consumed by a borderline religious obsession with this streamer. She collapses onto her bed, shaking with pure ecstasy as the mere sound of his voice sends a jolt straight through her. But just as she's totally losing it, a girl in glasses walks in and stares, absolutely worried sick by the scene unfolding before her. She's absolutely glued to the stream, her eyes locked onto that tiny screen like her life depends on it. Suddenly, Kanata flashes his hands at the camera, finally stepping out of hiding. "Look, I can finally show them off," he shouts to the chat, hyped as he asks if they're seeing this. Maria is just left standing there, totally baffled as she lets out a confused little squeak. One look at those hands and her heart skips a beat in pure terror. Then, the most horrifying realization of her life hits her like a freight train. Her face goes completely ghost white as she stares at the monitor in disbelief. Could it actually be him? No, there's no way. It's impossible. That single thought screams in her head over and over again. She desperately tries to deny the truth, even as the evidence piles up right in front of her. Look at the background, those buildings, that architecture. She knows those streets like the back of her hand. Without even realizing it, he just handed her his exact location on a silver platter. Midstream, Kanata proudly flexes his latest invention, a magic camera built specifically for hand cams, and he carefully positions his fingers to make sure the chat can see every single detail. He double-checks the stream on his second device, and it looks crystal clear, then tells his chat that the bandage is staying on because that nasty bruise still hasn't healed. He has a split-second thought about wearing gloves to hide his identity, but he just laughs it off, boasting that there's no way anyone could ever recognize him just from his hands. Right then and there, two of his viewers are hit with a wave of pure panic. Lady Shrusa rushes over with a medkit, demanding to know what happened to his hands, while Princess Maria is frozen in total shock, her whole body trembling as she realizes that those hands belong to the one person she never thought she'd see again. Totally oblivious to the chaos he's sparked, Kanata scrolls through a mountain of worried comments, playing it off by telling everyone he was just being a total klutz, and to watch out for those dangerous bookshelves, finally realizing that just showing his hands was enough to set the entire internet into a total meltdown. 2 hours fly by and he's hyping up the chat for their insane energy, but just as he's about to move on, a sudden ping hits his screen, and his face instantly sours with total confusion and annoyance. He opens a notification only to find a chilling video threat from a scarred powerhouse named Mantis. the leader of the Thief Guild, who growls about how much he despises streaming and how it makes his skin crawl. Then, Mantis's shadowy goons take over the feed, collectively vowing to hunt the streamer down and make his end as agonizing as possible. After the thugs tell him to spend his final days trembling in bed, Kanata just flashes a cocky grin at the camera and hits them with a "right back at you," knowing deep down these losers are just fueled by pure jealousy. While Kanata is getting absolutely showered in donations, Maria watches on in total frustration, unable to wrap her head around why people are so salty when he's making this much bank while staying completely anonymous. Under the flash of a brewing storm, she replayed his threat by the stream over and over, knowing damn well that a stunt like that could land him behind bars for a long time. This realization made her focus on two massive things the thief completely ignored: the fallout of threatening a streamer's life and the terrifying power his army of followers actually wields. Fast forward a few hours, and the fallout is absolutely brutal. Deep inside a jagged rock hideout, the entire Thief Guild is laid out cold, slumped over the wreckage of their own shattered gear. Amidst the absolute slaughter, a lone shadow bolts into the darkness. It's Mantis, the guild leader, wheezing for air as he frantically scrambles away from the mountain of his fallen comrades. His desperate sprint slammed to a halt as he cursed his rotten luck, wondering how the hell they'd tracked him down, only to find a wall of armored soldiers blocking his path, with the very streamer he'd threatened standing right in the middle. The sight sent him into an absolute frenzy, and pinning the blame for his pathetic retreat on the streamer, he let out a defiant roar and pulverized the very device that started this whole mess. His little tantrum is met with instant karma when an invisible force sends him ragdolling through the air, and as he crashes into the dirt screaming, a mysterious woman appears, mocking him for being such a pathetic little mantis. It's Maria, rocking full Holy Sister robes and white-knuckling a cross as she chews out the guy on the ground for being such a massive headache. All while Akita stands by, deadpanning a request for her to finally stop making his life so difficult. Hidden away where no human could see them, another pair was lurking in the distance. A massive winged demon spat in frustration, growling that he never would have come near this place if he knew the humans were going to beat him to it. Right next to him stood Lady Shrausa, her face a total mask as she watched the scene unfold. Smashed into the dirt and totally powerless, Mantis stared up in absolute terror at the boot on his spine, screaming to know who these mysterious monsters were. The army I unleashed on him was a total nightmare, a bizarre alliance of streamer worshippers, a horned demon lord, a holy priestess, and a cold elf princess all demanded his head, and their elite killers, a powerhouse warrior, a bubbly girl, and a stoic swordsman, were already closing in to deliver the death penalty. Two figures loomed over the trembling thief like a total death sentence. The woman in the nun's habit didn't hold back, declaring they were handing down an emergency judgment right then and there. Beside her, Akita the swordsman was practically vibrating with rage, disgusted that a pathetic loser like this would even dream of laying a finger on their lady. Battered and broken in the dirt, the thief could only watch helplessly as those two lurking demons finally took flight and vanished. That's when the terrifying truth hit him. They weren't just spectators, they were true believers too. They might not have been as fanatical as the big bosses, but they were still card-carrying members of the same psychotic cult. Watching from the sidelines, he saw the whole thing go down. He totally brought this disaster on himself, but man, it was still a gut-wrenching sight. It was a brutal wake-up call about just how terrifying the internet can really be. Few days later at the academy, the prince read a newspaper article with a smirk. The official story reported that the Royal Knights had successfully hunted down the notorious thief, Mantis. He remarked on their impressive work. He was not the only one to hear the name. Seated at his desk nearby, Kanata's focus was broken by the mention of Mantis, a name that felt vaguely familiar. As he pondered, another student approached his desk, was distracted by the other student's distress. The boy clutched his head, lamenting that recently, even the other commoner students had been ignoring him. Canada noticed the boy had dropped a handkerchief and tried to call out to him, but the student walked away, lost in his own misery. The brief interaction did little to lift his own spirits. Canada slumped over his desk, hating his lonely student life, and wondering if he had overdone it that one time. In the background, other students chattered, mentioning that the teachers were in an important meeting. His melancholy was interrupted by the classroom door sliding open. A teacher entered, instructing everyone to take their seats. From his desk, another student glanced over at Canada, noting how lifeless he appeared. The teacher stood before the class and made an announcement. Though it was sudden, he explained that a certain person would be joining their class temporarily. The news sent a wave of excited murmurs through the room, but Kanata could only look on with a weary, troubled expression, as Kanata sat stunned by the teacher's announcement. The subject of the discussion made her way down to school corridor. However, this was no ordinary transfer student. She was a person of the utmost importance to the capital, one who held a close relationship with the royal family. Until this moment, she had never revealed her face in public, but she had decided to make an appearance for the sake of her own future. Back in the classroom, the prince issued a stern warning to the students, telling them not to try anything rude. With a sharp gesture, he then permitted the newcomer to enter, a development that left Kanata utterly bewildered. The girl stepped into the room and greeted the class. She introduced herself as Alana, explaining that despite her youth, she held the position of saintess. The revelation sent a shockwave through the classroom, leaving Canada and his peers speechless as the new student gave a playful wing. At the academy, Canada rests his chin on his hand, contemplating the news. He correctly surmises that rumors of the saintess transferring into the S class are spreading like wildfire, with other students already rushing off in excitement to catch a glimpse of her. His prediction proves true as the classroom erupts into chaos. A large crowd of students swarms Alana's desk, calling out to her and marveling at her beauty. From his seat, Kanata watches the scene unfold with a knowing look, having anticipated this exact reaction. One of the female students manages to get Alana's attention, asking why a saintess would transfer to this particular academy. Alana gives a playful wink and touches a finger to her chin, thoughtfully replying that it is for something akin to societal observation. She then amends her statement, adding that she has another true goal in mind. Canada overhears this, his expression turning serious as he considers her words. His mind drifts to what little he knows about the title of saintess, recalling time spent in a library, poring over books to learn everything he could about this new world. He remembers the texts explaining that a saintess is a rare individual chosen only once every few decades, a person possessing immense mana and a worthy personality. This figure holds authority over the entire church, excels in diplomacy, and maintains a close relationship with the royal family. Alana herself confirms this, mentioning she is friends with Princess Maria. The pieces click into place for Kanata. He realizes that the girl he ran into before was this very transfer student. He muses that, given her power, she would actually be a better fit for the SSS class, not just the S class. He grimaces, recalling their first encounter and how he treated a simple, lost civilian. A wave of relieved sweat breaks out on his face as he thanks his lucky stars that she forgave him for his earlier behavior. As Alana sits at her desk, a confident young man approaches. He introduces himself as Zickert of the Landauer House, a student from the SSS class, noting that Princess Maria is absent on official business. He offers to guide Lady Alana around the school in her stead. Alana seems taken aback, offering a hesitant greeting. Her hesitation vanishes in an instant. With a cold, dismissive expression, she questions his audacity and calling her by her name without permission. While acknowledging his offer, she flatly refuses, leaving Zickert utterly stunned and speechless. Her cold dismissal leaves the high-ranking student, Zickert, utterly humiliated. He bows his head, offering a profuse apology as other students, including Kanata, watch the scene unfold. Some murmur that it's what he gets for being so cocky, while another calls the display pathetic. As Zickert shuffles away in defeat, Kanata hardens his expression. He has no time to laugh at the spectacle. As the next class is scheduled to be held outside, he decides he will use the travel time to look for topics to discuss on his next stream. Outside, during the practical magic lesson, Alana demonstrates her power. With a focused cry, she unleashes a powerful water slash, sending a crescent of fluid energy hurtling towards the practice target. The attack slices cleanly through the target, leaving the other students gaping in awe. They remark that such power is expected of the saintess, with some wondering why someone of her level, perhaps even greater than Princess Maria's, is in the S-class. One student declares he must make her like him, watches her contemplating the difficult life of nobles. They're constantly forced to engage in people-pleasing and forge connections for their families, never truly able to focus on themselves. His thoughts are interrupted when the instructor calls out his name. The teacher directs Kanata to go to the starting point for his turn, and Kanata acknowledges with a simple gotcha. As he walks past the line of students, Alana steps close to him. She leans in and whispers a quiet message of encouragement directly to him. "Please do your best, good sir." Her unexpected proximity and personal encouragement send a jolt of shock through Kanata. He freezes his mouth agape as she calmly turns and walks away. He remains stunned for a moment, processing what just happened. He can't believe she not only noticed him, but also spoke to him. As he stands there flustered, Alana continues on her way, hiding a small, satisfied smile. The brief interaction ignites a fire within him, now filled with a powerful new motivation. Kanata strides confidently toward the starting point, determined to show off. Zeus observes his friend's sudden change in demeanor, remarking that being so motivated is a good thing. He drops into a low stance, dead set on not going overboard like last time, and channels his energy into a razor-sharp water slash that rips through the air toward its target. The blast slams right into the bullseye, and the teacher watching from the sidelines gives a satisfied nod, whispering, "Nice shot." But not everyone's buying the hype, and Zickert's crew is watching the whole show with pure disgust. One lackey brushes it off as a cheap trick while Zickert sneers, wondering what that filthy peasant thinks he's pulling and calling him a massive eyesore as usual. Okanata hears every nasty insult they throw his way, but he stays stone-faced, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. But while he's playing it cool, someone else is definitely paying attention. Out of nowhere, a voice as sharp as a blade cuts through the air, demanding to know which one of them just called him a filthy peasant. The elf princess steps into the light, her face a mask of cold fury as Kanata watches in total shock. She admits she'd heard Maria's stories about arrogant nobles before, but she'd dismissed them as a bad joke, only to realize that these elitist jerks actually exist right here within the academy walls. That suffocating aura shuts Zickert's crew up instantly, as they realize this isn't just raw power, it's a level of surgical mastery they can't even touch. A massive, terrifying skeleton towers behind the elf princess as she demands they start showing some damn respect. Even the teacher is floored by her raw power, realizing this isn't just some cheap illusion, it's high-level magic. She keeps laying into them, shouting that it's pathetic to ignore your own flaws while trash-talking people who actually have talent. She makes it crystal clear, being a royal doesn't give you a free pass to act like a brat. The overwhelming weight of her magic and authority hits like a ton of bricks, slamming those arrogant jerks straight onto their knees. Kanata's just standing there completely lost, panicking that he somehow managed to piss them off even more. That's when Zeus steps in to clear things up. The princess and the saintess are actually teaming up to tear these guys a new one for disrespecting him. Once the chaos finally dies down, he's hit with a massive wave of regret for missing his chance to talk to the saintess, especially when he spots her way off in the distance, just vibing under a parasol with the elf princess. He brushes off those weird vibes in an instant, a massive cocky smirk splitting his face. He decides right then and there, none of that junk even matters anymore. He's got his ride-or-die listeners, and for him, that's more than enough. Recharged and ready to go, he throws his arms up, already plotting the absolute fire he's going to drop on his stream tonight. He's posted up on a bench, apologizing to his viewers for the delay and hyping them up for an absolute marathon until sunrise, while the elf princess beside him silently slips away into the night. His quiet dinner is suddenly crashed by a ghost from the past, and he nearly chokes when he realizes Alana is standing right in front of him. He blurs out, "Saintess," in total shock, but while she's wearing a smile, her eyes are razor sharp as she notices he wasn't eating alone. Canada's face completely contorts as the terrifying truth hits him. She definitely saw exactly who just left. While wandering the campus, Kanata stumbles right into a massive, ornate building and spots the saintess Alfana standing there all by herself, watching her in silence as she lets out a soft, curious hum. His quiet stakeout is blown wide open when she suddenly whips around and yanks him close by the collar, declaring their big reunion with a formal "good sir" that leaves Canada absolutely short-circuiting. She kept the pressure on, asking if he remembered her from town, her bright red blush fading as she locked eyes with him for a real answer. He confirmed he hadn't forgotten her, and Alfana immediately demanded he drop the formal act and talk to her like a friend, warning him there'd be hell to pay if he refused. Kanata was absolutely sweating bullets, realizing that being spotted alone with her was a recipe for a total disaster. To keep the peace, he quickly caved and agreed to talk normally, and she flashed him a massive, grateful smile. After a quick look around to make sure the coast was clear, Alfana dropped a bombshell, asking him to finally use her first name while she called him Kanata. He was totally thrown off since she used to hate that, but seeing her plead with her hands together, he could tell she was dead serious this time. She hops onto a nearby ledge and tells him that since destiny brought them back together, he's got to grant her one tiny wish, finishing it off with a playful, heart-melting wink. He froze, muttering her name as if testing its weight, his knuckles white with indecision before he finally crossed his arms and surrendered to the inevitable. When he finally agreed, Alfana practically short-circuited with joy, squirming around like she'd just won the lottery. Her face turned a deep shade of crimson as she shyly whispered his name back, and watching her, Kanata had to admit, sure, she's a total weirdo, but she's undeniably adorable with a top-tier personality and the looks to match. She was so hyped that her soul literally started floating out of her body in pure, unadulterated bliss. Honestly, just hearing him say her name was enough to send her straight into the stratosphere. All Kanata could do was stare, thinking to himself that this girl was just way too perfect. Inside her head, things were getting absolutely wild. But man, her brain was cooking up a total disaster of a misunderstanding. She convinced herself that since love is blind, anyone obsessed with destiny would find deep meaning in even the tiniest actions. To her, it was totally normal that a guy like Kanata wouldn't pick up on her obvious feelings. So, the moment he agreed to use her first name, she basically heard him say, "I do," and started planning the wedding. Completely clueless about her insane logic, Kanata just told her she looked tired and needed to get moving. The sun finally breaks over the horizon, bathing the massive Grand Academy in light as a brand new day kicks off. Kanata steps into the classroom and scans the room for a place to sit. He immediately spots Alfana, who's already the center of attention and swamped by a crowd of students. Right then, the elf princess strolls in, heading straight for Alfana with a bright, cheerful greeting. He froze dead in his tracks the second Alfana announced she was crashing the party, while his classmates just stared back with their jaws on the floor. His jaw hits the floor as the elf princess, Maria, marches straight up to Alfana, demanding to know why she isn't in the SSS class. And while Maria teases her for being full of surprises, a flustered Alfana can only stammer out an apology. The rest of the class was practically blinded by their aura, and even Kanata couldn't help but see them as a pair of total superstars. She watched as a flustered Alfana looked away, stumbling through an excuse to Maria that she was only there because she wanted to see what the student life was actually like. Their conversation was almost buried under the noise of the simping crowd, who worshipped them like literal gods, but were way too intimidated to actually get close. Watching them closely, he realized these guys were total pros at being the center of attention, but they looked so bored you'd think they didn't care about a single thing happening around them. The class was buzzing with rumors about whether the two would even react if approached, but others were quick to point out that their smiles looked totally fake and ice cold. That realization hit Kanata like a ton of bricks. He replayed Alfana's warm smile and Maria's sharp warning over and over in his head. But now those memories felt twisted. He could practically see them sneering at him with total arrogance. He was left spiraling, wondering if the kindness he saw was nothing more than a total delusion. Nearby, Alfana and Maria are hanging out when Alfana admits she's low-key jealous of the students, wishing she could join a class and get in on the fun. Canada catches every word, but he immediately shuts down his own envy, telling himself to stay in his lane and stop overthinking. Watching them all together hits him with a wave of soul-crushing loneliness, and he'd give anything to belong. He steels his nerves, deciding right then and there that he's finally going to make a friend. He turns to a guy named Zickert with a massive grin, trying to break the ice by asking what he had for dinner. But Zickert just shoots him a lethal glare and tells him to beat it. That brutal rejection hits him like a freight train, leaving him absolutely crushed. Kanata collapses onto his desk in total defeat, wondering if literally everyone in this place hates his guts. From across the room, Zickert just scoffs, thinking Kanata's getting way too cocky just because he's got some serious magic skills. He decides to just pass out right there, figuring he'll just vent to his stream chat for some sympathy later. But the moment his head hits the desk, Alana and Maria come walking up. Alana can tell something is seriously off, but Maria just shrugs it off like it's nothing. Alana's not convinced, though, and her eyes sharpen as she gets hit with a wave of concern. Meanwhile, way over in the Xandrid Empire, a serious situation was brewing behind the closed doors of a massive noble estate. In a high-end room, a young attendant stands before a little girl, and between them sits a massive table absolutely buried under a mountain of glittering jewels. Meanwhile, a man with a wicked scar briefs a bird-masked operative named Crow on a new anti-sighting, and Crow is so fired up for the mission that he literally crushes a device in his palm. A man with a wicked scar over his eye just smirks and tells his partner to stay patient, but the figure in the plague mask, the lethal assassin known as Crow, is strictly business as he crosses his arms and demands to know exactly who he's hunting. Kanata stares out over the school grounds, but he can't stop that one name from ringing in his head: Krill. He's slumped over his desk while Alana and Maria whisper about the man of the hour, with Alana doubting Crow is even real until Maria drops the bombshell that he was literally just spotted in Mithras. The group keeps chatting, realizing Mithras is lurking just 100 kilometers away, a distance that's honestly way too close for comfort. But they figure they're safe since they haven't done anything wrong, while Kanata just counts his blessings for being born into a family that's totally clean and out of the line of fire. Suddenly, it all clicks. In this world, crows aren't just birds. They're cold-blooded assassins. Kanata's mind starts racing back to all the digging he'd done. Even his own audience couldn't give him a straight answer, leaving him with nothing but scraps. To them, Crow was just some spooky urban legend meant to scare people. The internet was a total circus of wild rumors and baseless theories. "We're talking a body count of over 30, whispers of secret noble blood, and skeptics who doubted he even existed. But Kanata? He's starting to realize this nightmare is the real deal. Shrugging off the bad vibes, he decides this mess isn't his problem, and KO's right on his desk to catch some Z's before the next bell rings. Meanwhile, in a posh office, Crow is staring down a wealthy noble and immediately shuts him up, demanding the target's name because his time is way too valuable for small talk. The aristocrat is completely stunned, admitting he never expected a living legend from the Xandrid Empire to actually show his face. Incensed by the assassin's dismissive tone, the man bellows in anger and lunges forward to strike him. But in a flash, Crow vanishes from his spot, leaving the man's punch to meet only empty air. The man whirls around in shock, finding Crow now standing silently behind him. The assassin warns that he won't repeat himself. Terrified, the man immediately capitulates. He reveals the target's name is Streamer, a figure who, he claims, controls peasants with his words and can even influence the laws of entire nations. As the client observed, his associate groveled on the floor before the silent assassin, Crow. The man explained that thanks to the streamer's talk of human rights, which had even reached the ears of royalty, his slavery business was losing money. The client himself finally spoke, cutting the conversation short. He declared that he understood the situation well enough, though his tone suggested a hint of dissatisfaction. He presented a large pile of coins as a preliminary payment, stating that he was counting on the assassin. The client noted that since the target was a coward who hid his identity, it would likely take nobles a while to find him, so there was no deadline. Unexpectedly, Crow spoke, flatly refusing the job. The assassin stated it was a request they could no longer take, which caused the client's young daughter to gasp in shock. In response to the refusal, the assassin moved with impossible speed. A powerful fist slammed into the client's face as he uttered a confused "why," while the associate who had been complaining was dispatched in a separate, brutal instant. The assassin stood over the client's lifeless body, the payment coins scattered across the floor. They calmly explained that since the client had died, the job could no longer be accepted, and thus the money would be left behind. The young girl cried out for a master. The sudden violence did not go unnoticed. From inside the residence, a mate heard a sound from the rooftop and grew concerned. Outside, the assassins stood silhouetted against the night sky, having made their escape. Landing on another rooftop, the assassins sighed, feeling beaten. They complained that the work outfit was a pain before reaching up to remove their distinctive mask. It came off, revealing the face of a young woman with long, dark hair. Perched on a roof's edge, she mused aloud, finding it unbelievable that someone would actually request the murder of Lord Streamer. She held the plague doctor mask in her hand, a cheerful yet cynical smile on her face. She remarked to herself that trash truly does exist in this world, a clear condemnation of her former client. Her professional demeanor then melted away entirely, pulling out a small device. She saw that a broadcast was starting. Her face lit up with pure adoration as she squealed, greeting her idol on the screen, Lord Streamer. The sound of the broadcast startles the man who had hired her, who wonders aloud what kind of bird could make such a noise. It is a testament to a strange reality. Even the legendary assassin was an obsessive, devoted listener. She holds the device close, her face flushed with adoration. She whispers to the voice on the other end, telling him that a lot happened today, but ever since she found his broadcast, her nights have been wonderful and refreshing. Her bliss is interrupted by the realization that she missed some of what he said. Annoyed at the waste, she tries to refocus, but a part of her daydreams, wishing he would scold her for being a useless assassin who can't even work properly at night. Meanwhile, the streamer, Kanata, puts on a tearful performance for his audience. He recounts how he did his best to make friends, but as soon as he spoke, they told him to shut up. He sniffles, asking his listeners if they could console him. Act is convincing. As she listens, a single tear of sympathy falls from Crow's eye onto her device. She murmurs how awful it is, her heart aching at the shaky, pained quality of his voice. Cesaro quickly curdles into fury. She sees at the thought of those who slighted him, thinking they should be thanking him for the privilege of hearing his voice. Recalling dismissive comments from other listeners, she clenches her fist, certain that if he were talking to her, she would never hurt him. The intensity of her feeling reminds her of her recent work, the noble she had just killed. Back in his room, Kanata's demeanor flips entirely. He grins and holds up a glass of water, cheerfully announcing that he used it to fake the crying sounds. He asks his audience for their opinion on his acting, adding that everything else he said was true. Reveal causes an uproar in the live chat. Messages flood the screen, a torrent of surprise, relief, and praise for his convincing performance. He feels a bit bad for worrying them, thanking everyone for their concern. He then notices a specific message and expresses surprise that it was read from his perch on a rooftop. He shares a new resolution with his audience rather than treating his bullies in kind. He wants to try interacting with them more proactively. Continues, musing that even if they don't become friends, perhaps they might become willing to simply hold a conversation with him. Listening to this, Crow is utterly captivated, her face flushing. She finds a sentiment not just hopeful, but graceful. He continues speaking to his audience, adding that if his bullies ever treat him any worse, he hopes everyone will be there to console him. A sudden notification sound interrupts his light-hearted request. Elsewhere, in a stark stone chamber, the assassin known as Crow listens intently, her unmasked face set with grim purpose. Clutching her sword, she questions if that is truly all he wishes for, before making a solemn vow to act on his behalf. Vow echoes through the macabre hall, surrounded by the skulls of past targets. She declares that she will end anyone who dares to harm him, no matter who they are. With her purpose set, she leaps in emotion, a blur of deadly intent. Back in his room, Completely unaware of the deadly promise made in his name, Kanata looks over the flood of supportive messages on his screen. A warm, grateful expression spreads across his face as he reflects on how kind all of his listeners are. In a royal capital within a certain brothel, a young woman named Kana sees a client out. She offers a polite thanks for visiting Sir, as he waves and bids her farewell. With the transaction complete, she turns and walks back into the establishment, her expression hardening slightly. Inside, her boss greets her, praising her good work and mentioning that he changed the sheets for her. He remarks that the customers seemed quite satisfied, as expected of their top seller. Kana simply thanks him, clutching a pillow to her chest. Her confidence returns in a flash. She declares that of course they were satisfied, asserting that it was only natural since she was the one serving them. After all, she reminds him she is the facility's ace. Later, speaking with a different man, a manager, Kana asked to be left alone for a while, explaining she has her own work to attend to. She quietly expresses a desire to hear a certain person's voice, but the manager dismisses her, simply saying better luck next time, as he walks away. Alone in her room, she begins to undress. Unseen, the manager is peeking through the cracked door, his thoughts lingering on her features. Sensing his presence, Kana whirls around and hurls a pillow at the door, shouting for him to get out. Once he's gone, she sighs, reflecting that it was a satisfying day nonetheless. Tucked into bed, she grips her communicator and whispers a thanks to the streamer Herma Lord, right as his broadcast explodes to life. The manager is practically blasted out of the room when that voice asks if he kept his fans waiting, and Kana shouts back at the screen with a mix of relief and total fangirl energy. "You definitely did!" As she listens, her hardened expression finally melts away, proving that Kanata's voice is reaching places he never could have imagined, from princesses and demon kings to saintesses and assassins. And now, even a girl on the streets is clutching her screen, wondering if her favorite streamer has stumbled into some serious trouble. She clutches that device like it's her last lifeline, desperate for her lord to be right there so she can give him her everything. After all, he's the savior who rescued her entire kind from a living hell. You'd never guess it looking at her now, but Kana's past was a total nightmare compared to the luxury she has today. She was raised in the absolute gutter, a million miles away from the glittering lights of the capital. To stay alive, she was dragged headfirst into the city's gritty underworld, but she fought tooth and nail to climb that ladder and finally reach the top. Later, while chilling with her coworkers, one of them drops a total reality check. They're young and popular now, but the second they age out, their customers will vanish, leaving the terrifying threat of being kicked back to the slums hanging over them so heavily that Khan's hand actually shakes as she takes a drink, admitting she can't even bear to think about it. Her despair was met with total coldness. While the manager flashed a brainless thumbs up because the customers were happy, the boss went full savage, telling her to shut up and work because they were nothing but filthy trash. Kana was absolutely floored, unable to wrap his head around how someone could be this heartless to people who just landed the job. Meanwhile, in a swanky lounge across town, a group of guys are tearing the same topic apart with total disgust. One dude is bragging about how he dodged a massive bullet by catching his fiancée's true colors before the wedding, while his buddy claims that marrying a woman like that would basically be the end of his entire family legacy. This was the brutal reality of their world, where these women are treated like literal trash at the bottom of the social ladder. But even in this hellhole, Kana shows her heart by helping a wasted coworker get home. Back at their quarters, the manager tried to shake off the bad vibes by telling everyone to tune into the streamer's broadcast, which was literally seconds away from going live. Everyone huddled around the screen the second Kanata's stream kicked off. He joked about being a total neat freak before dropping a story that left him rattled, sending Kana and the crew into fits of laughter. Even the manager called him a total natural as Kanata geared up to read the next fan letter. The mood does a total 180 the second he starts reading that letter out loud. It's from some hater calling girls in their line of work filthy harlots and literal trash that's rotting the city. Those words hit Kana and her crew like a punch to the gut, killing the vibe instantly. They're hit with the crushing reality that no matter how hard they fight to escape this hell, the world is always going to look down on them. Kanata stands there floored, clutching the radio and demanding to know who the hell this guy thinks he's talking to. Seeing that toxic hate, he didn't hold back. He launched into a fiery defense that absolutely shut the trolls down. He called out the haters, demanding to know why anyone would judge a person's job and arguing that selling your body isn't a crime. He boldly declared that these people are actually warriors for doing whatever it takes to survive. As the chat flooded with support, his words hit like a freight train, echoing through the hearts of everyone watching. He proclaimed that he wants a world where every hardworking person can be proud of their hustle without being mocked. For Kana, who had never heard anyone stand up for her like this, it was a total revelation that changed everything. His broadcast echoed through every corner of the kingdom, forcing the masses to rethink their lives and leaving girls like Kana drowning in tears of pure joy. Just like that, the way society looked at these women shifted forever. Resting in her room, Kana realized that while the rest of the world might still be cold, their kingdom now treated them better than anywhere else on the planet. She whispered a silent thank you to the streamer, swearing that one day she'd find a way to pay him back for everything. Even though the world was moving on, her life was still a total disaster. She later opened up about a time she tried to reach out and finally make some friends. But the very second she tried to speak, they told her to shut her mouth and get lost. It's a memory that's honestly just as pathetic as it is soul-crushing. That memory hit her like a truck, sending her spiraling into a pit of total despair. Gripping her communicator like a lifeline, she screamed out, wondering who would dare disrespect her and her lord like that. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoed through the room. The manager stepped inside, apologizing for the interruption while trying to bring up tomorrow's schedule. But then her boss loomed right behind him with a twisted manic grin, asking if she could console them for a bit. Once that broadcast wrapped, the public didn't just turn on him. They went absolutely feral. Everyone was obsessed with unmasking the streamer and his former fans. Their worship turned into pure, toxic rage in an instant. Now, the whole city is screaming for his exile, with one question echoing through every alleyway. Who the hell does this guy think he is? Fast forward a week, and Kanata is roaming the streets solo with a stomach that won't stop screaming for food. Just as he's praying, the bread stalls are still open. A sweet, familiar voice catches him completely off guard. He spins around to find a face he knows all too well. Those signature pointed ears belong to none other than Princess Maria. She flashes him a massive smile, confirming his name and laughing about what a wild coincidence their little run-in is. Kanata is totally starstruck and starts stammering her royal title, so she leans in close and whispers, asking if it's really okay for a girl like her to be out here all by herself. She just laughed off his concern, admitting her butler was probably losing his mind right now, while he realized her situation was anything but fine. She leans in close, asking him point blank if he's free, and he's so rattled by her being in his personal space that he can only stutter out a yes. Once he confirmed he was free, she beamed and asked if he wanted to go for a stroll together. That simple invite sent Kanata's brain into a total high-speed meltdown. He knew that if a single soul caught them together, his reputation at school was officially dead. But even with his social life on the line, he couldn't stop himself from wanting to say yes. As they're walking, the tension is through the roof with their arms constantly brushing against each other. Suddenly, Maria stops dead in her tracks, asking if he can hear that mysterious sound coming from the shadows. Kanata is caught totally off guard, left standing there speechless and unsure of how to even react. Following the screams into a dark alley, we find a woman cornered and in serious trouble. It's Kana, and she's frantically fighting to break free from some long-haired creep's iron grip. This jerk claims he's a noble from Xandard, sneering that a commoner like her has no right to defy his authority. Terrified and trapped, Kana desperately begs the man to just let her go. Kanata's knuckles turn white as a fierce, unshakable fire ignites in his eyes. To him, playing the hero isn't some grand mission. It's just another Tuesday. He lunges forward with zero hesitation, barking at the creep to let her go this instant. Maria's right there to back him up, ordering that arrogant noble to freeze in his tracks. Right in the middle of the city, Kanata steps up to confront a green-haired creep who's getting way too aggressive with a red-headed girl. Kanata barks at him to let her go, making it crystal clear that she's definitely not interested in whatever he's selling. Standing right beside him, Maria is rocking her casual gear and looking absolutely lethal, staring the guy down with a look of pure, unadulterated rage. But the guy doesn't back down, screaming at them to shut up and mind their own damn business. This creep brushes Kanata aside and locks eyes on Maria, making a gross comment while reaching out to grab her. But Maria isn't having it, and she shuts him down instantly with a lightning-fast slap to his hand. He freezes in shock for a split second before his face turns red with pure rage, and he starts screaming that he's going to kill her. Kanata jumps in immediately, desperately trying to de-escalate the situation before things get totally out of hand. But before the guy can even move, Kanata lunges in, his hand erupting with mana as he slams a palm right into the man's chest. The thug lets out a scream as the magic surges through him, locking his entire body in place like a statue. He tries to fight it, but he's completely paralyzed, and Kanata just casually tells him he'll be stuck like that for at least a few minutes. He finally catches his breath as Maria flashes him a massive thumbs up from behind the pinned-down thug, cheering him on, but Kanata is just frozen, staring at his own hand in total disbelief at the power he just unleashed. The tension snaps as a fiery redhead marches up, cutting right through the shock. She demands to know if a lowly commoner like him has any clue what kind of mess he's just stepped into. Kanata's brain totally short-circuits, completely distracted by her beauty even while she's lecturing him. He's left reeling, wondering who this mystery woman is, and if Maria was the real princess all along. Her voice softens as she reassures him she's okay, explaining that the creep was actually trying to buy her, a concept that leaves Kanata totally floored. He asks if she's all right, his mind racing as he realizes that in this world, being a total beauty means you're basically a target for every scumbag with a wallet. Pinned to the dirt, the creep sneers that a brat like Kanata couldn't possibly understand before hurling vile insults at the woman and fuming that she dared to reject his charity. And hearing this trash talk, Kanata's eyes turn cold enough to kill. The girl visibly recoils, stung by his cruel, demeaning insults. Seeing this, Kanata absolutely snaps, lunging forward to snatch the guy by his collar and demanding to know who gave him the right to judge her for her work. He shouts back, challenging the man by asking what's so criminal about someone choosing to sell their own body. As the scene gets louder, a crowd starts to swarm and the paralyzed guy just smirks, loving every second of the spectacle. Seizing the moment, the noble screams to the crowd that he's a lord, and Kanata is nothing but a thief, even slapping a bounty on his head. But just as Kanata stands there frozen by the lie, Maria steps forward with ice in her veins, asks the noble if he's actually stupid, and reveals she was the one who called everyone over. She shoots Kanata a playful wink, apologizing for the holdup. While the paralyzed noble screams bloody murder, she casually tells Kanata she's already tipped off the guards about a heroic student saving a girl from a total creep. Glancing toward the armored soldiers, she adds that she made sure to be very specific with her details. With a chill smirk, she lets the stunned crowd in on a little secret. This noble getting hauled away is actually just a massive pervert. The girl she saved is left speechless as the truth finally rings out for everyone to hear. This is Maria Ataraxis, the third princess herself. Now pinned by the guards, the green-haired jerk can only gawk in pure disbelief as he realizes he messed with the wrong royal. With the chaos finally over, she turns to Kanata with a grateful smile, thanking him for keeping that noble pinned down long enough for her to call the authorities. And just like that, the guards are dragging the disgraced creep away into the distance. Watching them fade into the distance, she notes that the mess is finally handled, and security is about to get way tighter. But just as Maria turns to leave, the guards stop her to say they'll be calling on her expertise again very soon. Out of nowhere, the red-haired girl steps right up to him. She pours her heart out, thanking him not just for the save, but for finally respecting her and the work she does. Then, Catching him completely off guard, she reaches out and softly takes his hand. She locks onto his hand and asks for his name, but he just fumbles an excuse while secretly flashing his hands to the camera to reassure his chat that he's totally fine. He introduces himself as Kanata, and she fires back that her name is Kana. She boasts that she's a master at reading people, and apparently he passes the vibe check. She presses a mysterious carved token into his hand, telling him to flash it at the front desk of the brothel where she works. This little charm is his VIP pass, granting him instant access to her room whenever he wants. Kana mentions she's gotta head to work, but not before getting right in a stunned Kanata's personal space. She leans in and whispers an offer that's honestly pretty scandalous. She tells him that if he's ever feeling burnt out or needs to blow off some steam, she'll help him out, totally free of charge. With a final wave, she makes her exit, leaving his head absolutely spinning. Before he can even wrap his head around the offer, Maria suddenly teleports right into his personal space, making him jump out of his skin, as she casually remarks that Kana is one sharp cookie. He spots the sun dipping below the horizon and realizes she's spot on, so they trade quick goodbyes and head home for the night. Just as he tries to bail, Maria snatches his arm with a look of pure annoyance, demanding to know why he didn't ask her to walk home since they're headed the same way, even warning him to cover for her if anyone spots them. But on the inside, she's a total blushing mess, thinking about how her precious Lord Streamer would have treated her like a queen, drawing a massive line between the guy next to her and the idol she's obsessed with. As guards haul the disgraced noble away, he's absolutely losing it, screaming bloody murder about the commoner brat who humiliated him. Meanwhile, a sharp-looking guy with reddish hair watches the whole meltdown, breaking into a cold sweat as he realizes just how deep this grudge goes. Canada storms away from the chaos, muttering that these guys are going to be a massive headache even though he claims he's staying out of it. And as Mario follows him in silence, the spy watching them wears a wicked smirk. He's got everything he needs on the capital commoner known as Canada. Midstream, Kanata starts testing the weight of his words, throwing a massive hypothetical at his viewers. He asks them straight up, what would they do if he suddenly decided to conquer the entire world? The answers from his most obsessed fans are instant, terrifying, and 100% dead serious. One girl vows to hand him every single country she's already conquered on a silver platter. Another promises to use her insane powers to reset the world to zero, crowning him as its new god. A third fanatic pledges to wipe out anyone he wants, handing him her absolute loyalty and the entire planet. He lets out a shaky laugh, playing off his world domination comment as a total joke and insisting he's not actually a supervillain. He tells himself to watch his mouth, remembering all the toxic drama he used to stir up back in the day. But the chat isn't even mad. They're flooding him with support, telling him his voice is a literal gift and to keep pushing forward. Reinvigorated, he considers doing an IRL stream, but he knows he's not ready for a face reveal yet. So for now, the world only gets to see his hands. A message from the nameless princess appears, declaring her love for her lord and sending a donation of 10 gold coins. Caught in the moment, Kanata replies that he loves her too. In a classroom far away, Maria hears his words and collapses on her desk, letting out a series of muffled, ecstatic screams. The following day at school, Kanata sits at his own desk, cringing as he recalls the previous night's events, feeling he went too far. Feeling sleepy, he overhears his classmates discussing a rumor that Aguila, a student from the SS class, is the popular streamer. Maria and her friend debate the topic. The friend points out that Aguila is a noble, whereas the streamer claimed to be a commoner, concluding that he must be lying. Canada listens quietly, internally resolving to expose the impersonator on his next stream. Later, he scrolls through comments online, noting the speculation about the streamer's identity and wondering how he could prove the truth without revealing he's a student. His curiosity about the impersonator grows. As he walks through the school, he spots a group of noble students, including the prince, and feels a surge of irritation. Elsewhere, the saintess Alana looks at her own device, prompting a young girl beside her to ask if something is wrong, though Alana dismisses her concern. His resolve hardens. He's the real streamer. He strides purposefully down the crowded school hallway, having located the group of nobles he intends to confront. He bursts in on the group, shouting at the prince, demanding to know why no one will believe him. The prince, Aguila, looks down on him with disdain, calling him a liar. Kanata reflects that in his old world, fake accounts were easy to spot, but here, the situation is different. He realizes with a jolt that the problem has, in a way, already been solved for him. After school, Kanata puts on his glasses, determined to understand the prince's motives. He finds Aguila alone and listens from a distance as the noble laments that the world revolves around people like him and that no one would listen to a faceless commoner. Aguila reveals his plan. By posing as the streamer, he can improve his family's reputation, take the money, and claim the audience for himself. The motive is now clear, is suddenly approached by his friends. Akuta whispers that Aguila is a foolish man, and Rebecca agrees that someone so dumb is beyond saving. Zeus mentions they had plans with Aguila, confusing Kanata. Rebecca then turns to him and whispers, asking if he happens to know of Lord Streamer. Kanata freezes, stunned by the direct question. A flashback to 3 minutes prior shows the group finding Kanata. Rebecca reveals that she is a fan of a streamer, and Zeus expresses his surprise that she is too. Alana then quietly admits that during her few moments of rest at the church, just hearing Lord Streamer's voice calms her heart. Back in the present, Rebecca whispers to a flustered Kanata, asking if he and the streamer are one and the same. He is saved from answering when the focus shifts to Maria, who internally fumes that everyone is obsessed with the streamer, calling them cultists. It was this obsession that led her to observe Canada's actions, and she now feels bringing her sword was the right call as his sins worsen. In the present, she is flustered, realizing that both Princess Alana and the saintess Rebecca are also listeners. When Alana asks if she truly minds Canada's actions, Maria can only stammer in response. Regained some composure, declaring that while she cannot forgive Aguila, she also cannot forgive anyone who tries to sabotage another. Rebecca then turns the question back to Kanata, asking for his opinion. He suggests that even the streamer wouldn't want Aguila to face harsh punishment, especially if he reflects on his actions. Rebecca points directly at him, pressing the issue. Before he can respond, a shadowy claw of immense power bursts from the ground, seizing Aguila and yanking him into darkness. The group stares in shock at the empty space. Canada cries out, wondering where he vanished, while Alana confirms Rebecca's suspicion, stating she felt the power of an evil presence. In an instant, Aguila finds himself on a desolate, lightning-scarred courtyard before a towering, dark castle. A horned woman, the demon lord Shrausa, stands before him and asks if he is the streamer. Her muscular subordinate expresses doubt, noting that Aguila's mana is too low to be the genuine article. Her expression darkens into a terrifying snarl as she looms over the petrified noble. She hisses that he dared to use the name of the one she loves, and for that sin, he must be prepared to pay the price. Aguila can only let out a shriek of terror as she closes in. Meanwhile, back in the school garden, Kanata and his friends are still reeling. Rebecca expresses concern that it's not wise for a princess to get involved, but Alana reasons that if a demon was responsible, they likely kidnapped Aguila to confirm the rumors about the streamer. Kanata is taken aback by their sharp analysis. Their speculation is cut short as the demon lord shrouds and materializes before them, casually holding the unconscious and battered form of Aguila. She remarks on how embarrassing the situation is. As Kanata recognizes Aguila's scent, he steels himself, determined to protect the girls. In response, Alana and Maria immediately move into defensive stances, place themselves between him and the demon, ordering him to stand back. Shrausa clarifies her intentions, explaining that her boss was angry about the impersonation and that she has come to return to pretend her. She then addresses Alana and Maria directly, acknowledging the animosity directed at her. Demon Lord chuckles, her demeanor shifting entirely. She reveals that many demons, including the Demon Lord herself, are avid listeners of the streamer's broadcasts. She muses on how lovely it is to have a being who can connect both humans and demons. Turning her gaze to Kanata, she states she would more willingly accept him as the streamer than the pathetic imposter. Struggles to maintain his composure, desperately hoping his expression doesn't betray his panic. Alfana's mind races questioning just who Kanata is, now that it's clear even demons perceive his mana as abnormal. Sensing the escalating tension, Maria steps forward, introducing herself as a government official and attempting to de-escalate by ending the conversation. Shraza simply smiles, amused by the young lady's intervention. She departed in an unknown spheroid, leaving the group behind. While Princess Maria went to report the incident, Alfana slumped against Kanata, utterly spent from the day's events. Kanata, surprised by her sudden proximity, noticed how close she was. She sat with her for a moment before Maria returned, taking his hands to thank him for his help. She explained how happy it made her. Kanata, flustered, thought to himself that any man would protect a woman, but found a praise overwhelming. Though he couldn't see Alfana's face, he could still hear her soft breathing as Maria looked at him with admiration, telling him he was truly wonderful. A few days later, the consequences of the encounter became clear. Aguila, now completely transformed, frantically chased after Kanata and Maria, crying out for Lord Streamer to help him. After the incident, he had accepted all of the streamer's supposed ideals, made all of his family's crimes public, and was now vowing to rebuild his house to be fit for a true fan. Walked through town, pondering if the Demon Lord's ceasefire offered with genuine, when a voice called out to him. A mysterious, beautiful woman with dark skin and pointed ears stood before him. She shyly asked if he could guide her around the town. Kanata, taken aback, could only stare in surprise. In a bustling capital, Canada takes in the sights, remarking on the interesting architecture in shops. His companion, a tall woman in a sun hat, notes his reaction and asks if this is his first visit to a human town. He confirms that it is finding the capital truly fascinating. She apologizes for making him guide a self-proclaimed country bumpkin, but he cheerfully dismisses her concern, admitting he's happy to walk alongside a pretty girl. Internally, he thinks she's quite easy on the eyes. Flustered by the compliment, she offers to lead him to some of the town's nice hidden spots. Arrive at a walkway overlooking the city. As she leans on the railing, gazing at the beautiful scenery, her expression turns serious. She whispers to herself, lamenting that someone has been trying to destroy such a lovely view. Her somber tone gives Kanata pause. He senses a strange atmosphere emanating from her and bluntly asks if she is human. The question surprises her, but her shock quickly turns to delighted laughter. She finds his perception wonderful, admitting she thought the items from her subordinates would have hidden her identity completely. She presses the point, and she confirms the suspicion she is not human. She glances around, noting that the hidden spot is conveniently devoid of other people and magic sensors. As a reward for seeing through her disguise, she declares she will show him her true self and lunges forward with blinding speed. An immense dark aura erupts from her as she transforms. Her hat flies off, revealing sharp horns curling from her head. With Kanata caught in her grasp, she introduces herself as the humble demon, Shrausa. Startled but composed, he introduces himself as Kanata. Shraza acknowledges his name, explaining that she has cut them off from the outside world with magic. In this isolated space, she states, he is the only one who can perceive her. She then asks for his thoughts on demons. Canada recalls being asked this before and gives his honest opinion. He believes that despite the long history of conflict between demons and humans, it would be better if they could get along. He argues passionately that if someone dies in war, demons would surely grieve just as humans do. His words strike a chord with Shrosa. She agrees, confirming that demons do shed tears for fallen comrades. Praising his insight, she suddenly places a hand on his chest, not to attack, but to sense his power. She is stunned, exclaiming that he possesses a wonderful amount of mana, far greater than her own. Kanata realizes with a shock that she, like him, can see the waves of mana emanating from others. Shraza's caught totally off guard for a second, but she rolls with the punches and accepts the truth. Boom! The dark barrier shatters into nothingness, and they're suddenly back on the walkway with her human disguise perfectly in place. She laughs off her crazy monologue as just a weird little hobby, then grabs both his hands and looks him dead in the eye. With total sincerity, she asks if he agrees that humans and demons should be walking hand in hand, exactly like they are right now. She lets his words sink in, a tiny spark of hope finally lighting up her eyes, while Canada backs her up with total conviction, swearing that no matter how brutal the road ahead gets, they're absolutely going to pull this off. She can't help but chuckle at how dead serious he is, remembering his dream of a peaceful world where they finally coexist, a future she's actually dying to see now, leaving Kanata completely flustered and questioning everything he just said. Then, she drops a bombshell. There's a streamer out there who shares his exact same philosophy. She totally geeks out, admitting she's a huge fan, and that this guy's words were what finally flipped her perspective. He was preaching peace talks over all-out war, and that message hit her right in the soul. Canada is floored, asking if this streamer is actually famous even among the demons. She admits he's a total celebrity now, though some of those stubborn old-timers are still holding a grudge, but then she suddenly invades his personal space to drop a bombshell. She wants him to visit her world, and she's the only one who can sneak him in. After they pinky swear to meet again, she vanishes in a blinding flash of energy, officially ending the craziest day off Kanada's ever had. Back in his room, Canada's head is absolutely spinning as he replays the day's chaos, realizing he never even suspected Shroud's secret identity since the Demon Lord's real name is a total mystery to the human world. Deciding to cut his stream short, he tells his viewers to get some sleep before collapsing into bed, completely drained from his accidental shift as the world's most stressed-out tour guide. He finally drifts off, but his rest is about to be anything but peaceful. Looming silently over his bed is a mysterious figure in a dark trench coat and a creepy plague doctor mask. This intruder, Crow, stares down at the sleeping streamer and lets out a chilling, low-key laugh. Looks like his long day is far from over. Just a few days ago, a lethal deal was officially sealed. A girl with auburn hair stepped forward, confirming to the Plague Master Crow that she was the one pulling the strings this time. Flashing a wicked grin, she asked the assassin if he still remembered a certain man. The mark was Kanata, that absolute creep of a noble who'd been exiled back home thanks to Maria and Kana. Her request was short and sweet. She wanted his head. Her face contorted with pure fury as she replayed the humiliation in her head, swearing she'd never forgive him for making her look like a total fool. Crow took the contract, noting from the file that the target was just some random nobody living in the capital. It looked like a total cakewalk. This guy's only real crime was having the absolute worst luck. The client let out a wicked, spiteful laugh, telling Crow she was counting on him to finish the job. Finally, the mask drops, and the assassin's true face is revealed. It's a young girl, the real Crow, landing silently on a rooftop overlooking the city. She mutters to herself that it's been way too long since she's been back in these streets. With her target locked in, she decides to kick things off by hunting for some much-needed intel. Just 1 hour later, her scouting was a wrap. And honestly, it was way too easy. Everything she found pointed to him being a total saint. A student who'd saved a woman from a creep, protected his sister from a scam, and was a regular at the local bakery. She had to admit he seemed like a genuinely good guy, which made what she had to do next feel like a total gut punch, but she steeled her resolve because she had no other choice. Lurking in the pitch-black shadows of an alleyway, her mind was a total war zone. She actually considered going back to the drug game just to survive, but she shut that down fast. She was Crow now, and she wasn't turning back. Then, her thoughts drifted to him, that streamer she only knew through a screen, the one person who gave a lost assassin like her a real reason to keep fighting. Right away, She felt an undeniable kindred spark between the two of them. This streamer was masking his true self, putting on an act just like she did whenever she hid behind her persona as Crow. That shared sense of secrecy fueled a deep parasocial bond, even though she'd only stumbled across his channel by total accident. Being from the same town, she never in a million years expected to grow so attached to him. Her own thoughts even started mimicking his hyper-streaming style as she obsessed over the legendary rare jobs of this world. She'd spent countless nights glued to his streams, totally falling under his spell, until he suddenly dropped a bomb about assassins, asking his audience if they knew what it was like to live in the shadows. A dark turn that left her absolutely stunned that her idol knew so much about her secret world. He kept going, admitting that, yeah, assassins are usually hated and treated like nothing more than disposable tools for dirty jobs. They're the types who lurk in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to take someone out. But then, he dropped a total bombshell on her. He told her straight to her face, he thinks assassins are actually pretty cool. To him, people who live that kind of life are way more interesting than anyone else. She was completely floored by the compliment, left standing there in total, stunned silence. Her heart was absolutely pounding. She was head over heels for him, finding his naive nature just way too charming. She finally snapped out of her daydream and locked back in on the mission. She had finally reached the target's house. To her shock, someone had been careless enough to leave a window wide open. Just as she was about to slip inside, she whispered a quiet apology. "Forgive me, Kanata." She slips into the room, only to find Kanata wide awake and strapping on his signature headband. He whips around, looking totally shocked to see her standing there. But before she can even make a move, he shouts that his live stream is about to go live right now. With a lightning-fast kick, he sends her flying right back out the window, casually mentioning he's got to close it so the neighbors don't hear the noise. The would-be assassin is left outside in total shock while her target just starts his broadcast like it's no big deal. He kicked off his stream, completely oblivious to the shadow lurking right outside his window. But in that heartbeat, whether it was a killer's instinct or just the gut feeling of a hardcore fan, the truth finally clicked for Crow. Kanata and her favorite streamer were actually the exact same person. Her pro instincts were screaming at her to stay invisible and not let him catch a single glimpse of her, not even for a heartbeat. She decided right then and there that she wouldn't even blink, even if her eyes started bleeding from the strain. But the fangirl inside her was absolutely losing it, totally hyped to finally see him in the flesh and hear his voice live. Right as she was fighting this internal war, Kanata just casually asked his chat for some food recommendations. Meanwhile, Prince Aguila is over there laughing to himself, convinced that the assassin Crow is some bloodthirsty monster tearing her targets to pieces. But the truth is way more hilarious. Crow is actually just vibing upside down outside the window, treating the whole thing like her very first live recording session. And right in the middle of all that, Kanata gets hit with a sudden message from the nameless princess herself. She was running on pure adrenaline, refusing to blink, but even the legendary Crow eventually hit her breaking point. She'd been posted up in Kanata's room, guarding him like a hawk until her body finally gave out and she collapsed from pure exhaustion. As for Kanata, he was totally dead to the world, barely even moving as the night rolled on. His eyes snap open as a scream rips from his lungs, because standing right there in his room is a mysterious little girl with a smile that's absolutely chilling. Bolting up from his bed, he points a shaking finger at the intruder, demanding to know who she is and why she's there. But Crow couldn't care less about his questions. She's just thrilled that Kanata is finally looking at her, and with total, unshakable confidence, she prepares her answer. She shoots him a cheeky, playful wink. "It's a real pleasure to finally meet you." Addressing him as Lord Streamer, she starts yapping about how she's just a totally normal, definitely not suspicious girl. Kanata just stares at her in pure shock before finally exploding. "And you seriously expect me to buy that?" He had no idea yet, but from this moment on, his peaceful streaming life was about to be dragged through absolute chaos. Kanata's jaw drops when Mira, the deadly assassin who's been tailing him, finally steps out of the shadows. His mind starts racing as he realizes this girl knows every single one of his secrets. But then, she starts begging him to trust her, claiming she's actually his biggest fan. Flashing a huge grin, she introduces herself as Mira, though most people know her as the Lethal Crow. He stares her down, his eyes darting to the plague doctor mask on the floor as he nervously asks if she's really the legendary assassin known as the Bird. And when Mira gives a cheerful, "Yup," the big guy nearby is left in total shock. Kanata's mind is spinning, trying to figure out why a legendary figure would actually sneak into his room just to watch him sleep. With a terrifyingly intense stare, she doubles down on her explanation. The reason? She's literally his biggest fan. Kanata just winces, realizing he's talking to a total brick wall. He blurts out asking if he's the reason for all her misery, and she doesn't even blink before confirming his worst fears. This wild turn of events is a total 180 from his past life, and he's completely caught off guard. But Myra misreads his shock as a cold rejection, and her expression instantly turns to ice. She tells him she gets the message, says her final goodbyes, and suddenly unsheathes her blade. Kanata lunges forward, screaming for her to stop, but she doesn't even flinch, chillingly calm as she presses the cold steel right against her throat. He's absolutely losing it, screaming at her to tell him what's wrong and if she's actually trying to end it all. But she just gives him a chillingly blank look and says it's because she's been a burden, leaving him no choice but to bark at her to drop the sword right now. She doesn't even flinch, staring him down with a bone-chilling blank expression. She calmly drops the bombshell that if he sees her as a burden, her life has absolutely zero value. This hits Kanata like a freight train, sending his heart into a frenzy as he collapses to his knees in total shock. He's left paralyzed on the floor, completely crushed by the realization that her obsession is so twisted it defies any label, and the sheer suffocating weight of it is enough to make him break down and cry. His mind is spinning as he tries to make sense of the chaos, clutching his hair in frustration because this was never the plan. He can't even think straight anymore, and the crushing weight of guilt hits him. He knows her being like this is entirely on him. He chugs a glass of water to stop his hands from shaking, then turns back to the kneeling girl with a cold-blooded command. She's forbidden from dying, mostly because he's not in the mood to spend all day scrubbing her blood off the floor. He drops to his knees in front of the young assassin, calling her Mira with a sigh of pure exhaustion. He demands to know what the hell she's thinking, but she completely misses the point, offering to go end her life somewhere else, forcing him to snap back that her location isn't the damn problem. She leans in close, her expression dead serious as she reminds him that he's the only person alive who knows her true name, before dropping a bone-chilling question. Now that he knows her secret, is he going to kill her? He's not buying it for a second, flat out doubting she's actually the legendary assassin and demanding some cold, hard proof. She takes a second to think before bragging about her elite stealth skills, but her brain completely short-circuits mid-sentence. Suddenly, she snaps, furiously demanding to know who else is after his head so she can go wipe them out immediately. He just lets out a heavy sigh, realizing this whole conversation is a complete dead end. To flex her skills, Mira suddenly vanishes into thin air right before his eyes. Kanata is left standing there like a total deer in headlights, completely blindsided. He frantically scans the room for any trace of her, but since he didn't feel a single drop of mana, he realizes this wasn't a spell. It was pure, god-tier speed. He stares at his hands in pure shock, his brain still reeling, when Myra's voice suddenly cuts through the air. She's standing right there, and as a ghostly shimmer ripples over his palm, he feels the unmistakable touch of the invisible girl. Out of nowhere, she pops into existence with her hands pressed right against his chest. Totally caught off guard, our hero jumps back and starts screaming apologies at the top of his lungs, but she just brushes it off, telling him it's really no big deal. Her face lights up with pure joy as she admits that even a simple touch from her lord is enough to make her day. As for him, he's just standing there, absolutely dying of embarrassment and completely drained from the chaos. Shaking off the shock, he demands to know what she's doing back in his room, but she just flashes a confident smirk and starts breaking it all down. Her explanation hits him like a freight train, leaving him slumped on the floor in total shock. With a bright smile, she chirps that even if this gets her executed, being by his side makes her the happiest girl alive. He can only stare in pure horror, realizing just how broken and twisted the logic of this world really is. He nervously asks if the hit is officially off, but she loses it, screaming that she'd never lay a finger on him. In fact, she's pulling a total 180, swearing to protect him while hunting down the very person who hired her in the first place. She freezes mid-sentence as the realization hits her like a truck. She was literally sent here to kill him. She starts absolutely trashing the client who gave her such a messed-up job in the first place. Cut to later, and we see Kanata rotting away at his desk, desperately waiting for the bell to set him free. But right outside the window, Mira is glued to his every move, officially marking day 2 of her new life as a professional stalker. Meanwhile, the fallout from Myra's betrayal is finally hitting the fan. Inside a completely trashed room, a figure in a plague doctor mask sits there in a daze, still gripping their teacup in total shock. Suddenly, a roar echoes from outside, screaming that the defeated crow is nothing but a dirty traitor. Back with Kanata. Mira's beaming like a kid on Christmas as he flashes a cocky thumbs up to an invisible crowd, basically saying sorry for the wait. She wraps up her report with a bubbly summary, but then drops a low-key, terrifying request, sweetly asking them to stop the mindless murder. He's stuck weighing her skills as a bodyguard against the pure terror of having her this close. But his internal panic is cut short the second his comms terminal starts flashing on the desk. He snatches up the device, praying those letters finally arrived so he can distract himself before his nerves hit the breaking point. He's staring at the glowing screen, totally baffled, when a mysterious voice suddenly pipes up and drops a total bombshell by calling him, "My Lord!" Suddenly, a brutal message slams onto the screen calling him a mass murderer, leaving Canada paralyzed with shock as it declares his sins unforgivable and accuses him of doing it all just for fame. The message spells out the brutal logic. Shouting across that distance takes an ungodly amount of mana, and since the only way to get that power is by siphoning it from a massive crowd, he'd be a dead man if he'd tried to pull it off solo. A mysterious shadow hijacks the broadcast, his voice dripping with spite as he demands to know exactly how many lives the streamer destroyed to reach the top. The message ends with a chilling oath from his enemies, swearing they'll never let this go and won't rest until they've wiped him off the face of the earth. He's frozen in shock, staring at the screen as those cryptic words loop in his head, while Mira realizes this insane accusation is a ticking time bomb that's about to go viral in a matter of days. Kanata's brain is working overtime trying to justify his mana usage, but his panic comes to a screeching halt when he catches Miro doing something totally unhinged. She's literally kneeling by his bed, face first in his pillow, taking a massive hit of his scent like some kind of addict. As she mumbles about how great her lord smells, Kanata just feels a massive headache coming on. This girl is going to be a total nightmare to deal with. He was absolutely reeling, realizing that even in this world, a few nasty rumors could wreck a reputation just as fast as they did to celebrities back on Earth. But just as he was spiraling, Mira suddenly appeared by his side, looking up with genuine concern and asking, "My lord, what's wrong?" He leaves her hanging, totally ignoring the threat as he points an accusing finger right in her face. "Wait a minute," he barks. "What the hell did you do to my bed?" Mira just tilts her head with a smirk, playing the ultimate innocent card as she asks, "Gee, whatever could you be talking about?" In the world of ataraxia, being a streamer isn't just a hobby, it's the ultimate title of power and legend. His revolutionary streaming culture was spreading like wildfire, but his followers were getting way too deep, turning into dangerously obsessed yandere listeners who worshipped his every word. His influence completely flipped society on its head, crushing job-based prejudice, wiping out the bandit guilds, forcing a truce with the demons, and finally setting every slave free. Everyone was desperate for the power to move entire nations with a single word, and now a few ambitious rivals are trying to pull off their own versions of that same legendary feat. Meanwhile, over in a small kingdom near Rogias, a girl inside the Sunday noble estate suddenly hits the floor, howling in pain because her mana reserves are bone dry. They're on their knees begging for mercy, but this brute yanks her up by the hair and screams that every single one of them is pure trash. Master Rikba sat there fuming, wondering why he'd even spent a dime on such ungrateful trash, until his old servant reminded him that mana is basically their lifeblood. The attendant drops the bombshell that this is the final batch of slaves, and they're officially out of mana. He warns Rick not to work them to death just yet, since dead slaves are just a waste of gold, so it's better to let them rest for now. Rick curses the princess for those pesky new anti-slavery laws making his life a nightmare, but then he cracks a sinister grin because he's already got a winning hand. A guard walks up, and Rikba brags about snagging an SS-rank adventurer the day before, scoffing at the idea of being nice as he orders the slaves back to their miserable cells. He whips around to his attendant, demanding an immediate update on the situation. The old man checks his clipboard and delivers the news. Their captive only has enough mana to keep the stream live for 5 more minutes. Meanwhile, inside a massive tank, the adventurer Akuta is suspended in healing water, slowly recovering from his brutal journey. He stares at the device in his hands, eyes bulging in total shock as he realizes it's been 5 minutes. He just can't wrap his head around how this streamer has enough mana to pull off a broadcast like this. He finally snapped, lunging from his seat and roaring that no one could possibly have enough mana to fuel a dream for an entire night. He demanded to know how many lives the streamer had sacrificed to pull off this insane feat. And in that moment of pure chaos, the dark rumors started spreading like wildfire. Driven by pure spite, he stood before his army and fired them up for the ultimate takedown. He laid it out plain. They were going to expose every single one of that streamer's dirty secrets and drag his reputation straight into the abyss. He ordered them to flood the report button and bury him from the shadows, and with one voice, the crowd roared back, ready for war. To set his master plan in motion, he demanded every drop of mana needed for a 5-minute stream, declaring he'd be hijacking the airwaves right as the other streamer wraps up their show tomorrow. Little did Canada know he was being set up, as he stared at his phone with his eyebrows raised, totally caught off guard by the message on his screen. Kanata stood up from his desk as Mira nervously asked if they were really just going to leave things like this, and while he wasn't totally sure, he told her he wanted to wait and see how it all played out. She drifted closer, worried the world would totally misread her, while Kanata just rubbed his sore neck and asked when she was finally going to head home, only for Mira to suddenly whip out a pair of glasses and offer to fix his pain, promising no killing this time while Kanata just wondered where the heck those specs even came from. He shut that down hard, but Mira didn't even blink before dropping an even darker plan, selling their organs for cash. Meanwhile, Maria and her squad are glued to the broadcast, but when she spots a fan literally licking the screen, she realizes her dream of having gentle followers was a total lie. These people are absolutely unhinged. Back in his room, Kanata's head was spinning, so he decided to head out and walk off the steam. Mira didn't miss a beat, and immediately volunteered to tag along for the ride. He finally agreed, but only on one condition: she had to stay completely invisible. When he asked what she wanted in exchange, she just smiled and said his company was reward enough. He lets out a massive stretch under the full moon, soaking in the cool night air, while Mira turns bright red next to him, clenching her fists and swearing she's totally not a stalker. The peace is shattered when his phone suddenly buzzes with a rogue broadcast, where a man named Rikba mocks the audience for being blind fools and vows that in just 5 minutes he's going to expose the streamer's dark secrets to the world. All over the city, people freeze in their tracks, eyes glued to their screens as the broadcast takes over. Whispers ripple through the streets like wildfire, with everyone starting to wonder if these insane allegations are actually legit. Even Alfana, Akuta, and Rebecca are visibly shaken as the horrifying idea that this streamer is a cold-blooded killer starts to feel way too real. Meanwhile, Maria is glued to her screen, her confusion instantly flipping into pure shock as she gasps at the sheer weight of the lies being spread about her. Her shock instantly turns into a volcanic rage as she screams that he'd never do something like that, absolutely pulverizing her phone in her bare fist. The signal is blowing up everywhere, reaching further than anyone could have imagined. Even Lady Shrausa is forced to sit there and listen to every single one of those accusations. Her face twists into a mask of pure, silent rage as she glares down the source of the broadcast. Back on the roof, Kanata calls out to Tamira, sensing her spiraling, while she stands there trembling with a destructive urge so violent that he's the only anchor keeping her from nuking the entire area. Meanwhile, Ripa is off meeting with a mysterious stranger in the shadows. This nobleman has no idea what kind of power he's just provoked, and he's basically just stepped right on a sleeping tiger's tail. The stranger asks for a favor, making it clear that they're both treading on some seriously dangerous ground now. Just as Akuta and Zeus head out for the day, Kanata's left brooding on a bench to plot his next move, while elsewhere, the clock starts ticking down to the first bell. He catches Maria and her friend buzzing about his latest stream, and while they aren't buying the rumors that he's a killer, they're absolutely floored by his insane mana levels and the massive wave he's making across the world. Later in class, he mulls over the constant pestering about his streaming secrets, but he's been dodging those questions like a pro, because the real answer sounds like a total lie. He can pull it off simply because he's built different. He's rocking a straight-up cheat code from his reincarnation. Infinite mana, meaning he can spam god-tier spells all day without breaking a sweat or worrying about energy-draining hacks. But he has to stay sharp, because one slip-up could mean accidentally nuking everyone in the room. He swears to keep his powers a total secret to stay out of trouble, because as long as he can keep those streams running, he's perfectly happy. As he's trekking through the school halls, he's low-key panicking that the wild rumors about him are spiraling out of control, when suddenly the assassin Mira jumps him, nearly giving him a heart attack just to apologize for being late. She hands him a letter packed with all the intel he asked for, but Kanata starts sweating bullets because she's way too close for comfort. He practically begs her to back off, leaving her completely baffled. He thanks her for the assist, but asks her to chill with the violence, sending Mira into a blushing mess as she admits she got a little carried away, though she swears she'll follow his every command. This praise is way too much for our resident assassin. Hearing a thank you from Lord Streamer is a total system overload, and Mira literally short-circuits, passing out cold from the sheer intensity. Kanata's left standing there in total shock as his deadly bodyguard face-plants into a deep sleep right on the spot. He cracks open the documents she handed him, only to realize the mastermind pulling the strings is a noble from the tiny, far-off kingdom of Rogia. As he tore through the documents, the truth hit him like a truck. This wasn't just some petty gossip, but a massive shadow organization fueled by pure jealousy that was dead set on his destruction. All while Mira, the one who leaked the intel, watched him with a smug, satisfied smirk. Kanata was floored by her efficiency, realizing she'd cracked the case wide open in record time. Mira dropped to one knee, offering to hunt down every last secret if he gave the word, but Kanata could only wonder, was she really okay with doing all this dirty work? He didn't waste a single second before slapping her with a brand new mission. Gripping his comms, he ordered her to use her deep web intel to hijack a specific stream. Mira was all in, snatching up the assignment before he could even finish his sentence. Later, while rocking his school uniform, Canada starts digging through the nasty rumors being spread, and it's a total hit piece, claiming he tricks former slaves into trusting him just so he can suck their magic dry. He kept reading, scoffing at how creative these lies were getting. The text actually claimed his followers were brainwashed and that the only way to stop his crimes was to kill him, all while Mira headed out on her next mission. He finally snapped, slamming his fist into the wall with a bitter laugh, absolutely livid that their toxic assumptions were now coming for his fans too. Back in the demon realm, Kana is absolutely losing her mind over those rumors, going on a total rampage while her allies struggle to pin her down. Lady Shroudza just watches the chaos with a straight face, already calculating the massive bill for all the property damage. But hey, at least the lies haven't spread to too many people just yet. Back at the academy, Kanata's passing through the courtyard when he overhears Maria's group gossiping about the rumors, and his heart sinks as they admit the lies actually sound believable, realizing right then just how far this smear campaign has poisoned everyone's minds. He ducked into the shadows to plot his next move, knowing talk was cheap, and if he didn't squash this misunderstanding fast, it was going to spiral into a complete nightmare. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off, Staring at his audio-only gear, he realizes that if he pulls off a handcam stream to recreate the entrance exam, it might just be the massive breakthrough he needs to change his entire life. Maria's eyes widened as she instantly recognized the secret weapon behind his entire plan. It was the measurement orb from the entrance exams. This is the same gadget used to rank exactly how much mana a person is packing. It finally clicked. He couldn't pull this off without one. He knew that if he unleashed this live on stream, it would be the ultimate flex, proving to every single viewer that this insane power was 100% his own. Slumped alone on a campus bench, the crushing weight of his situation finally started to sink in. That orb was worth a literal fortune, and there was no way a nobody student like him was ever supposed to get his hands on it. From a distance, Alana and Maria kept a close eye on him, sensing the pure desperation radiating off his every move. Maria watched him intently, noting they were practically the same person, and when Alfan asked if she was talking about that fraud streamer, she set him straight. She understood his burning need to wipe out every sinner on Earth because she wanted the exact same thing. Decision locked in, the duo marched up and shouted his name, snapping him right out of his spiral of dark thoughts. She bolted to her feet, her jaw hitting the floor when she realized it was Princess Maria and Alana standing right there. Alana's eyes filled with worry as she asked what was wrong, telling him he didn't even need to say a word for her to understand. Deep down, she was desperate to save him, but she knew she had to stay grounded or she'd lose herself completely to her feelings for him. She reminded him of the hero he's always been, bringing up every time he'd stepped up for others to prove he's the one guy they can actually trust. Seeing her chance, she reached out and threw down a formal alliance right then and there. Now that the tables were turned and he was the one backed into a corner, they were ready to dive in and back him up. She urged him to finally drop the lone wolf act and let them shoulder that massive burden with him. Her logic was dead simple. They were born with massive power and influence, and now they could finally use every bit of it to back him up. She poured her heart out, insisting their massive power was meant for saving the weak, before clasping her hands and begging him to finally lean on them for once. His heart hammered against his ribs as he tightened his grip, a massive wave of relief washing over him because he finally realized these were the only two people he could truly trust. But just then, Maria spoke up, asking both him and Alana for a serious favor. He strokes his chin, his face turning stone-cold serious as he stops them mid-sentence to drop a massive bombshell. He's actually a streamer. Alana and Maria are left completely paralyzed, their eyes wide with disbelief as the weight of that massive revelation finally sinks in. He's practically vibrating with nerves, arms locked tight as he panics that his sudden confession sounded like a total joke. So he mumbles a quick apology for dropping such a massive bombshell out of nowhere. Alana suddenly shatters his train of thought by dropping a total bombshell. She's known his secret this entire time, and when a stunned Canada asks how, she reveals she's had him figured out since day one because of a tiny wound she spotted on his hand. She doubles down, explaining that once she saw his hands on stream right after their meeting, the jig was up, and that's when Kanata finally realizes he's been caught red-handed. Maria's face twists in pure shock as the realization hits her like a truck. Kanata is actually Lord Streamer. Alana just scoffs, admitting it was a total cakewalk to figure out, especially since his accent was such a dead giveaway. Kanata starts panicking as it hits him. He's been accidentally leaking secrets this entire time. Alana and Maria just shrug it off, though, telling him it was way too easy to see through him. Then, Alana steps in close and tenderly takes his hands in hers. She holds him firmly, reassuring him that even knowing the truth, they are his fans and would never do anything to cause him trouble. Her expression becomes intensely serious. She declares that if they did, they would have no right to call themselves fans. Maria steps forward as well, placing her hand over theirs. She agrees with Alana, adding that they want to keep hearing his voice and his usual fearless attitude. She then leans in extremely close, demanding you drop the formalities and stop calling her princess. Overwhelmed by their combined intensity, Kanata can only stammer out his agreement. He listened, somewhat stunned, as Alana and Maria declared themselves as allies. Alana, reminding him of her status as a princess and a priestess, offered to grant anything he desired. He could only manage to acknowledge them by name. As they each took one of his hands, He reflected on the fact that even though they knew his identity, neither of them had leaked his secret. They had kept it safe. He knew he could trust them, yet a strange feeling crept over him. Their demeanor felt different from usual, almost unnervingly intense. Leaned in, their faces unnaturally close as they stared at him. A wave of panic washed over Kanata as he glanced around, worried that someone might see or overhear their conversation. Alana, with a confident wink, revealed she had anticipated his concern and had already cast a spell to ensure their privacy. Relieved Canada thanked her. She then turned serious, stating that the purpose of their meeting was to discuss the rumors and conspiracies surrounding his identity as streamer. She elaborated, explaining that she had requested her mother and father to investigate the matter. Thanks to a mysterious cooperator, they had already traced the rumors to their source. Kanata was stunned by the speed of their progress, which Maria proudly confirmed. Alana continued her report, stating that while the rumors accused him of being a mass murderer, their country's investigation had found no evidence to support such claims. The one truth they did uncover, however, was that his activities as Lord Streamer required an amount of mana far exceeding that of any normal person. This fact led her parents, and indeed the leaders of every country, to two possible conclusions. Either he possessed more mana than anyone else in the world, or he was using some unknown device to generate the necessary energy to stream. Maria then clung to his back, urging him not to feel he had to rely solely on them. She explained that the name Lord Streamer now held significant power, and that he had garnered unwavering support from the common people. Many of these supporters, she revealed, were already taking action to quell the malicious rumors. Was struck by the revelation. So many people, his believers, were ready to fight for him and would not forgive any action that troubled him. While grateful, he realized he didn't want anyone else to clean up his mess. With renewed determination, he resolved to prove his own innocence with his own hands. He declared his trust in both Maria and Alana, though his face flushed with embarrassment at their current predicament. The two girls, having tumbled to the ground, looked up at him, dazed but resolute. As they recovered and stood before him, he gathered his thoughts, preparing to explain his strategy. Alana, ever direct, prompted him to reveal the plan. His plan centered on a specific object, the orb they all saw upon first entering the academy. He reminded them that it was considered a valuable artifact, one that was strictly forbidden to be removed and was kept under lock and key somewhere deep inside the school. Now, sitting together on a bench, he elaborated on his intentions, stating with conviction that this was a problem he needed to resolve personally. In response, both Alana and Maria leaned in impossibly close, their faces inches from his. Alana vowed that regardless of how things turned out, she would take full responsibility, leveraging her authority as a princess to secure the necessary permissions. Maria echoed the sentiment, granting her own permission as the priestess. The intensity of their support and their proximity left Canada completely flustered. He was grateful for their unwavering help, though he silently wished they would give him a little more personal space. With this new alliance forged, the stage was set. Streamer and his believers had finally joined hands to combat the rumors, and his next move would be revealed very soon. Outside the school building, with classes concluded for the day, Kanata turns to Alana and Maria. He carries a broken computer monitor, thanking them both for their help and expressing confidence that he can get things ready for tomorrow, settle their preparations. He confirms the details of their operation. The plan, he states with a determined grin, will begin at 6 in the evening tomorrow at their designated meeting place. Both Alana and Maria affirm that they understand. Later, a knock sounds at the door. Maria opens it, looking up to see who has arrived. It is Alana, who strides into the room with a severe expression. Maria asks what is wrong, but Alana's attention is fixed elsewhere as she asks if this is about Lord Kanata. Maria confirms it is, and the realization strikes Alana with the force of a physical blow. Lord Streamer truly is her classmate. Sees as Maria by the shoulders, shaking her frantically. Maria pleads for her to calm down, but Alana, completely overwhelmed, shouts back that there is no way she can possibly calm down. Her agitation erupts into a destructive frenzy, shattering furniture and glass around her as she screams that her idol is her own classmate. Maria dodges the flying debris, begging her to stop destroying the room. A moment later, with the room magically restored, Maria looks down at a bandaged and flustered Alana on the floor. Alana insists she isn't lying, explaining that while she was never certain, she had her suspicions because his way of speaking always felt familiar. She continues to mutter Kanata's name in a daze. Maria leans in close, telling her to stop murmuring, and points out that she can now simply use their meetings to make Lord Kanata fall for her. The suggestion causes an immediate and drastic shift in Alana's mood. She now stands before a chalkboard filled with equations. Her expression, one of intense calculation, as she ponders which name to call him. Maria watches this sudden change, stunned by the quick shift in her friend's focus, immediately leaps to an absurd conclusion, her mind racing with plans for a wedding ceremony. Since they know each other's identities, she reasons they are practically married. Maria, looking on, dryly points out the flaw in her logic. Her thoughts manifest as a brutish, aggressive version of herself, who roars that she will be Lord Kanata's bride, not Maria. While the real Maria chuckles at the joke, a distant Kanata warns her that Alana becomes unhinged when she invokes her authority as a princess. The playful vibe dies instantly as Alana turns dead serious, jabbing a finger at Maria and warning her not to cause any drama at school. She makes it crystal clear that on campus, he is Lord Kanata, not Lord Streamer, and she swears she'll never forgive Maria if she ruins his reputation, wearing a terrifying look of intensity that Maria hasn't seen in years. That terrifying intensity sends Maria's mind racing back to their childhood, specifically that insane moment a 5-year-old feral-looking Alana admitted to rigging Maria's alarm clock with a freaking bomb, leaving the poor girl apologizing for a mistake she didn't even make. Back in the present, Maria snaps Alana back to reality, reminding her that once this mess is over, they'll be the only ones left who know his true identity. She breaks it down, explaining that they finally have the edge over every other fan to support him directly, and that cold logic finally snaps Alana out of her obsessed trance. This is the secret weapon that gives them a massive edge over everyone else. Right now, only a tiny handful of people actually know the face behind the screen. We're talking about an exclusive inner circle: Kana, Maria, Alana, and Rebecca. Meanwhile, the demon lord Shrosa is staring at her monitor in absolute horror, realizing there's no stream schedule posted for the day. Back in the room, Maria is totally on board with Alana's new realization. They swear to be his secret guardians, making sure the world never finds out who he really is. Alana clenches her fist, her resolve hardening into pure, unbreakable steel. She shouts that this is how real fans who know the truth are supposed to act, proving that calling them dangerous was a total mistake now that they've finally found their true calling as guardians. That new pact with Maria completely flipped the script, taking them from simple fans to something way more intense. They locked hands to seal the deal as Maria officially dubbed them allies in the fight for Lord Kanata, and Alana was 100% on board, her eyes practically glowing with excitement. On the surface, it looked like a total best friends forever moment between these two girls. But behind those fake smiles, a dragon and tiger were ready to clash, as Alana swore to win Canada's heart, while Maria was dead set on being his undisputed number one. Both girls were dead set on proving who knew him best. Alana claimed she discovered his talent first, but Maria fired back, bragging that she was the first person on Earth to uncover the streamer's secret identity. Forget being just friends. That was a massive lie, because now they're fueled by a dark, obsessive hunger that's consuming their every move. Getting back to business, Alana whips out a gadget and explains that since Lord Kanata is swamped prepping for the revolution and won't be streaming, they should binge his old VODs to get their hype levels maxed out for tomorrow. Her eyes sparked with approval as Maria backed the plan, warning that since classes were canceled, just hunkering down wouldn't be nearly enough. Their competitive fire blazed back to life instantly, and when Alana asked which stream she meant, Maria accepted the challenge and called out the exact Q&A where he was trying way too hard to look cool. Everyone leaned in as the device crackled to life, broadcasting Canada's smooth, playful voice as he teased, "Hey guys, How about you all join me? Before letting out a mischievous little laugh. The second his voice crackled through that tiny speaker, any shred of self-control they had just went out the window. Maria started pumping her fist like a maniac, screaming at the top of her lungs about how much she worshipped Lord Streamer. Alana was so overcome with emotion she was literally writhing on the floor, joining the chaos with a desperate cry of, "We love you!" Now that they'd stopped holding back, their wild, fanatical screams echoed through the entire night. For Kanata, the stage is set, and Maria's squad is officially locked in to meet up tomorrow at 6 p.m. sharp. He grips his fists tight, practically vibrating with pure excitement. Misunderstanding or not, he's counting down every second until tomorrow's special stream finally clears the air. But before that happens, he's got some serious prep work to do. A teacher is posted up at the gate like a human brick wall, and Kanata knows instantly that a regular kid like him has zero chance of talking his way past this guy. Just as he's wondering if anyone is actually skilled enough to slip past the guards, Mira suddenly spawns out of nowhere and latches onto his back, and when he panics and asks how long she's been lurking, she just casually asks if he called for her. They're soaring straight through the midnight sky. He looks up at his partner, his face lit up with a grin that screams, he's got a plan. Mira wonders what business they have in the capital at this hour, and he reveals there's a specific person he absolutely needs on his side. He hits the roof where Kana's been waiting, and when she suggests they finally get down to business, a panicked Kanata has to shut that down before things get way too awkward. He's desperate for a custom fit, and is ready to drop any amount of cash for a tailor who can work fast and keep their mouth shut. So Kana, totally catching his drift, tells him not to sweat it as she starts sketching a map to the perfect person. With Mira passed out on his back, he pulls an absolute all-nighter, hitting up every shop in the capital, including a blacksmith, and doesn't stop until the sun peaks over the horizon with only 1 hour left before the big meeting. He finally makes it to the spot Maria pinned, and his jaw hits the floor when he sees a literal castle, wondering if they're actually allowed to use a place this insane just for a stream. Decked out in a crisp suit, he flashes a grin, totally hyped with the work his ally pulled off. He double-checks his high-tech detachable camera, gearing up to go live to the world. But just as he's about to hit that start button, a heavy knock echoes through the room. He tells them to come in, knowing full well the real game is finally starting. He finds himself flanked by Alana and Maria, who are both shaking like leaves, and when he tells them they didn't have to come, they immediately push back, insisting their presence is the only thing keeping his commoner roots a total secret. This whole mess started with their meeting yesterday, where he was this close to dropping his disguise and coming clean. During their talk, he realizes his proposal is about to blow his cover as a student living in the dorms, but Alana shuts him down instantly. She'd already sniffed him out just by looking at his hands, leaving him completely shook. Seeing him backed into a corner, Alana steps up with a game-changing solution. She offers him her top-secret villa as the ultimate spot to host his stream. She promises it's so well hidden that even her own parents don't know it exists. It's the kind of place that stays invisible, even if you're staring right at it. She reveals her saintess magic creates a massive ignore me field, making everyone lose interest in the area the second they get close. This spell is so busted that even veteran adventurers couldn't spot a giant castle right in front of them, despite knowing something was definitely fishy. Alana vows to overhaul the barrier so he can finally see it, while Maria suggests a genius magic fusion to create a total dead zone for untraceable streaming, leaving Kanata absolutely floored by their insane talent. Maria explains that her magic is a sacred legacy she'd never normally break, but she's not about to leave him hanging. For his sake, she's willing to throw the rulebook out the window. Right then, she and Alana dogpile him, screaming that they're coming along to sneak him into the villa and keep his cover from being blown. Drowning in their chaotic energy, he finally caves and lets them have their way. Back in the present, standing in the middle of that insane villa, he could feel the raw mana pulsing through the walls and made a mental note to pay them back for this later. Just as he's lost in thought, Mira pops out of nowhere, flashes a quick thumbs up, and vanishes, leaving him stunned as he realizes her exit earlier was just a total fake-out. Kicking back outside with a drink, Mira had somehow shrugged off Alana's top-tier magic to stand guard, making sure Kanata could keep his stream going until he was completely satisfied. Kana's on the other side of town, eyes glued to her screen as she prays for a miracle. Meanwhile, a massive crowd has gathered for the broadcast, and while the hype is real, the skepticism is even louder. Akuda and Zeus are right in the thick of it, betting that the streamer is just gonna flake and make some lame excuse to bail. Deep in the demon realm, Lady Shrusa is watching with a smug grin, betting everything on our streamer, even if her subordinates are totally skeptical. While one demon notices he's built different, another wonders if he might be a real danger, but they all agree to tune in for what they're sure is going to be his final broadcast ever. Back at the hidden villa, the tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. The second the clock strikes the fateful hour, Maria locks eyes with Kanata. She gives him the word. The moment has finally arrived, and it's go time. Meanwhile, Alfana hangs back in the shadows, silently taking in every single detail. He gave them the green light to move out, and even though his heart was pounding, Kanata took a deep breath, ready to soak in every second of this history-making stream. As our hero gears up, Prince Aguila steps out in front of a massive, roaring crowd that's hungry for blood. He shouts to the heavens that no matter what excuses come out, this is officially the streamer's very last broadcast. Aguila demands the mask come off. He wants the world to see his face, his hands, and hear that pathetic voice for themselves. Completely unfazed by the prince's barking, Kanata balled his fist and dropped a final order to his squad. Watch for a gap and hit him with everything you've got. The second that stream flickered to life, the entire world lost its collective mind. From Kana and Lady Shrusa all the way to Prince Aguila and the king himself, every jaw hit the floor in a massive wave of pure disbelief. Everyone's jaws hit the floor as the screen flickered to life, revealing not some random guy, but the streamer in his iconic helmet, casually asking the crowd if they'd missed him. One final cocky shout rang out to the world, and just like that, the curtains slammed shut on the streamer's lightning-fast legend.